Welcome back to Daytona. Was that directed at Dale Jr. or at the fans? Yes, the answer is yes. We're back. Some things are new and slightly blue. A lot of white and red for the new driver, the 14. Some things are new, like the make of car for Kevin Harvick. Some things are new, like a lot of the rules. Some things are fast, like Rowdy. And some things are 7-time champions. Add Jimmy Johnson to that mix. It's all new. It's a brand new year. It's Daytona 500 qualifying practice presented by Chevrolet. So much is new. We've only got a 4-hour practice session to explain it all.
We're going to explain it.
With Hall of Famer Darrell Waltrip, Hall of Famer to be Jeff Gordon. I'm just Mike Joy, but I'm thrilled to be here. Gosh, this is my 42nd Speed Week. It's probably about your 45th. You've been coming down here a long time. I don't think we've ever seen such a season of change as this one.
No, I mean, from the format, you know, the breaking the races up into sections, the way they're doing it, and the manufacturer changes with Stuart Haas and sponsors, you know, with the Martin Truex got a new sponsor. There's just a lot of things going on right now. The rules for the cars are pretty much the same as they have been. A little bit of a change in the restrictor plate, but it looks like the speeds are right back where they were last year.
And that's what doesn't change. Everybody comes in here, tries to go in this pre-qualifying practice as fast as they possibly can.
Well, that's what I love about this time of year. Everything that's going on over the offseason and preparing hundreds of hours of preparation to get this car out on track and make it go as fast as you possibly can, whether it be the engines, the aerodynamics, the mechanics of it. And this is going to be, you know, a lot of fun to see whose hard work is going to pay off tomorrow in qualifying.
Fluff and buff.
So we'll see a lot of what's new and some of what's the same. Here is what we're working toward tomorrow, qualifying for the Daytona 500. It's pole position qualifying, and with the new charter system that went into effect a year ago, the 36 chartered teams, and there are some changes among those teams, they're guaranteed to start in the 500. There are 4 open spots for other non-chartered teams. The fastest 2 drivers in pole qualifying, they've won the front row. They get bragging rights for a week. The highest finishing open team in each of the Can-Am dual races earns a starting spot, and the final 2 spots in the field will be given to open times based on their pole qualifying speeds. So as you can see, it's all about speed. Down to the garage, Jamie Little.
Well, Mike Joy, he is back after almost 7 months away from racing. Dale Earnhardt Jr. is ready to climb on board the 88 and go out there and focus on competition. Sure, he's been in 2 tests in December and January, but that was just shaking things down, getting ready to get back in the car. But he is at Daytona, and I have to say, I watched him make the walk through the garage. He didn't stop smiling, and fellow drivers walking up, shaking his hand. You see his crew chief, Greg Ives, there talking and smiling. They're so happy to have their guy back. Now, Junior, he just has to wait. Greg Ives told me that they ran out of time yesterday to get their car through inspection, so they had to go through this morning, and you can see the team is working on everything, the driver comforts on the driver's side, of course, and they're working on just getting the details and the decals put on the race car. So Dale Jr., he is chomping at the bit and ready to get back on board. Matt Yoakum?
Jamie, it's a comeback weekend for Dale Earnhardt Jr., but it's a coming out party for Stuart Haas Racing, switching from Chevrolet over to the Ford brand. And Kevin Harvick told me from their meetings a couple weeks ago at the Henry Ford, their personal guided tour by Edsel Ford's son Henry, Raj Nair, all the executives. It's infectious, their enthusiasm for Stuart Haas Racing coming over to the Ford brand. And SHR has put so much into this move, so much in the offseason as far as hiring new personnel, 85 new employees. They've added a chassis, in-house development program, and it's all coming to fruition here at Daytona. And as Edsel Ford said, racing and winning, it's in our DNA, and SHR would love to do what Henry Ford did so many years ago, win in their first race in a Ford. Mike?
Thanks, Matt. A lot of new faces, and one is behind the wheel of the number 19, Xfinity Series champ Daniel Suarez from Monterrey, Mexico. He is the full-time driver of this car last year after Carl Edwards unexpectedly stepped away from the sport. A move that he discussed with his team owner Joe Gibbs in late December. It was announced to the public mid-January. Don't call it a retirement, Edwards says. Don't use the R word. And he will be at selected tracks to help Daniel Suarez acclimate to what is now the Monster Cup NASCAR Series. But I think of all of the offseason changes, this one was the shocker.
This is a big one. And for any fans out there that think, well, Daniel Suarez is not ready for this. Yes, he is. He won the Xfinity Championship last year. Now, a lot of times you think, well, you know, maybe somebody like Chase Elliott. We've seen other drivers where they do 2 years of Xfinity. But this kid's ready. He's got a lot of momentum. He's got a lot of confidence right now, and he's coming into one of the best teams with a great opportunity. And not only does he have great teammates at Joe Gibbs Racing, he gets Carl Edwards to tap into to help him get along.
Yeah, I was very impressed with him last night. His track presence. He was out there drafting with his teammates. He knew when they made a move, he didn't panic. He knew exactly where to go. He knew where he was supposed to go, where he was supposed to be. I was very impressed with the way he handled himself last night in the draft.
Here's another fella he'll get to lean on, the defending champion of the Clash and the Daytona 500. Denny Hamlin in the squeaker of squeakers. Closest timed finish margin, closest margin of victory in Daytona history.
You want to know how you win the Daytona 500? That's it right there. Get a big shove from Kevin Harvick and take that momentum to the front, even if it means moving your teammate out of the way.
Martin Truex side drafted off him once, twice, had the lead 100 feet from the line, but by inches. Wow. Denny Hamlin.
Wow. 500 miles comes down to inches.
Those closing laps of that race were so intense.
They really were. The move that Hamlin made on Matt Kenseth up there in the middle of 3 and 4 to get under him and get Matt loose, that was an incredible job by Denny Hamlin.
I totally agree, DW. Not only to get the momentum, get the push from Kevin Harvick and take that momentum, but to be able to move that car, maneuver it, and make such an aggressive move in the middle of the corner to go 3 wide in the middle and the car to stick the way it did, I was so impressed.
I think he had better tires than the other guys, and that allowed him. That's one of the things we talk about all the time. Tires may not make a difference in performance, but it sure does make a difference when you want to make a bold move like that because you got the grip.
Hamlin coasting in to debrief with his crew chief. Let's do a little debrief with ours. Larry McReynolds.
Mike, I heard you talking about how many years you've been coming to Speed Weeks. This is my 37th season, and one thing that's not changed, these first laps on the racetrack with your Daytona 500 car, they can be the most anticipated lap you'll run all year. It's like Jeff Andrews over the Hendrick Engine Group told me. He said he had a meeting with his guys earlier and said, guys, for years we came down here and tested during the winter. We kind of knew where we stacked up, but he said, I promise you, we'll all be on pins and needles when those cars go out there and run those first laps today. We'll know if all of our hard work during the month of November, December, January, and February has truly paid off.
Well, that's a great point, Larry. No preseason practice. So here are practice times so far. 6 cars have been on track and logged laps.
Mike, to follow up just a little bit on what Larry said, even the guys back at the shop, they are watching everything that happens here this morning because they have worked on these cars all winter long. And as I said earlier, they've fluffed and buffed. They've detailed them out. The engine guys are tuned to perfection. Everything about that car is as good as everybody on that team can make it. And everybody's got an interest in how this thing's going to run when it hits the racetrack.
We heard several drivers last night in Clash practice, and the Clash will be on FS1 this evening. That'll be the first checkered flag of the NASCAR portion of Speed Week 17, and they were talking about how, well, the steering wheel's not quite in the right position. The digital dash doesn't display exactly what I want. My feet aren't comfortable. There's that whole acclimation process. New pair of shoes here.
Yeah, and you can actually hear the side skirts on this car on Kevin Harvick hitting the racetrack, and that's a part of this process today. Not only is the driver getting acclimated to what's inside the cockpit, but these crew chiefs and engineers are all about heights, getting that car down, sealed to the racetrack, get as much air to flow over that car as slick as possible to get the car up to speed. And that means there's going to be moments on the track in the corner where it's going to compress into the racetrack and actually hit those side skirts, and it's about getting it just right.
Yeah, Mike, I think about distractions. The driver doesn't want to be distracted, but he wants to focus. He wants to hold that steering wheel as steady as he possibly can. Every movement in that wheel can slow the car down a little bit. So no distractions. Wheel where I want it, pedals where I want it, gauges, the screen on the computer, everything right where I want it. So I just have, it's second nature to me.
Always like a shot like this where you actually see the shifter knob. That tells you a lot about where your drive line and drive shaft and how the car, the vibrations that go on throughout the entire drive line of the race car while you're out there on a track like this. And so a lot of times the driver will actually put their hand over on that shifter knob to kind of feel, you know, how is everything aligned there, and is that costing us speed? And I would say that's a pretty normal vibration right there. Sometimes you'll see a lot more severe than that.
Yeah, and driver shots to me are fascinating. I always like to see how they hold the wheel. How much are they turning that steering wheel? That tells you if that car's too tight, tells you if that car's a little bit loose, and you want to hold that thing as steady as you can, because any movement in that steering wheel can slow the car down.
Yeah, we saw right here with Austin Dillon. I mean, he looks really nice and smooth, but see him flipping some switches over there. Be curious to know what some of those are. Could be maybe a fan. You know, he might be watching the temperatures, and they have a plan. I'm not exactly sure. We'll look into it a little bit more, but what they're doing is, while they're making this lap, they're trying to do everything they possibly can to get ready for qualifying and go through all the motions of what's going to happen on that qualifying lap.
Keep an eye on Austin Dillon. He was the only driver in all of NASCAR that had a top 10 in all 4 plate races last year. Plus, he was 8th in the clash and 11th in his duel.
Yeah, I think he had the best average finish on the restrictor plate tracks last year. And I still haven't figured out how they finished third with that car at Talladega. It looked like a roll of duct tape.
It was.
It was a rolling duct tape.
Well, that consistency builds confidence, and when you're consistent on the restrictor plate tracks, you know that you've got what it takes to get the car back in one piece. Well, even though that car was not really in one piece, but you're going to be able to build on that, and I think they will. And then here we got Jamie McMurray, great restrictor plate racer. Not only that, this guy knows how to step up at the big races. If you look at the races that he's won, he's not won a ton of races, but the ones that he has won have been huge races. Brickyard 400, Daytona 500.
Yeah, his teammate, Kyle Larson, running really well. One of the fastest cars here last night. Again, posting a fast time today. That bodes well for that whole operation.
And here's Larson.
I was very impressed with Larson's lap times last night. The fastest Chevy that we saw on the track in the class practice. So curious to see if they can back that up here today as well. You can just see that sealed look on that splitter, that front splitter, the way that air meets the front of that car and flows over the top of the car. That's what these crew chiefs and engineers are looking for.
Boys, look at this. Look who went to the top.
Clint Boyer, top of the chart in his Ford.
He found a car that likes him.
Oh, come on.
I think this year is going to be quite a year for Clint Boyer. I mean,
agree.
This guy, he went through so much in 2016. Nobody's earned the right to have some good things happen for him more than Clint Boyer.
But the reason I said it is because I remember last year he was terrible somewhere. I said, now what's the problem? He said, my car hates me.
You know, wow, quicker yet. 46.93, 191.7 miles per hour. Clint Boyer's Ford faces the early minutes of practice. Welcome back to Daytona 500 qualifying practice presented by Chevrolet. Clint Boyer's Ford and 3 Toyotas top the chart. There are 10 of the 12 drivers who've been on track logging laps so far. Only 2 drivers have made more than 3 laps, and those are the 2 Ganassi cars of Larson and McMurray. Here's a big group waiting their turn so that a draft from another car doesn't affect your run. So how do you pass the time in a 4-hour practice session?
The 2 of you need to tell us a joke for every run here to pass the time.
You want me to tell you jokes, then I'm afraid I only know about the chicken and the road thing.
And I only know rated R jokes.
That's how you pass the time away. But that's why we have 4 hours. Look, you're going to sit down here on pit road for several minutes waiting for your turn to go out. So until we get down to that last 10 or 15 minutes, and then it's like a mad rush. Everybody wants to go out at once.
There's always that one last change is going to make a big difference.
Just needed one more lap. Been here 4 hours. I just needed one more lap.
Ryan Newman completing his lap.
Former Daytona 500 winner. currently 11th.
Really anxious to see Richard Childress racing this year and see how they step things up. You know, we saw glimpses and moments where they were doing really well at times, but we need to see more consistency. But if they can do that this year, I really believe this team can kind of break out of what we've seen in the past couple of years and get to that next level and really compete for more race wins.
Now, Larry, 16 just was not the greatest season for RCR.
No, and I mean, the winless streak that they're on, they have not won a race since Kevin Harvick left there. You have to go all the way back to the end of 2013 when he won the Phoenix race. So, yeah, I know they're talking about, you know, winning a championship, talking about making the playoffs, but I think the biggest thing is winning a race. Guys, I want to point out something. Remember what you said at the top of the show, Mike. Daytona 500 front row qualifying. Practice. Tomorrow is 1 lap qualifying. You don't get 2. You don't get 3 laps. And right now, I'm seeing Joey Logano's 7th quickest. He ran that 190.9 1 lap. Everybody above him ran 2 or 3 laps. If you're trying to test something, that's okay. But that's not indicative of how quick you can run on 1 lap.
Larry, what I always wonder when we see them make their first run, a lot of times I know our team would go and make 2 or 3 laps because you're sitting on pit road, everything's cool, you want to heat everything up because you think when you go to make that 1 qualifying lap, it's 1 warm-up and then 1 on the clock, you'll be able to have everything heated up during that moment. So I know we were always trying to be consistent, so we would run 3 laps, but I do agree with you. That's pretty impressive for them to run that lap and only make it 1 lap.
There's only 2 things I want cool: my water and my driver.
Well, Ford
Good luck.
now occupy the first 4 spots. Ricky Stenhouse now 2nd quickest in his 17 to Brad Keselowski, Clint Boyer, and Trevor Bayne. Keselowski's 2nd of 2 laps was his fastest. Stenhouse's 4th of 4 laps. Bayne to the top on his 3rd lap. How about that?
All right, bring it to us. Take it easy on the splitter. Take it easy on the splitter. Bring it to us this time.
Just don't get on the brakes hard, what he's saying. Don't just lock it down and get that splitter bouncing off the ground. They don't want to hurt it.
Well, and they want to get a good measurement because what happens is if it hits the ground too much, it starts to grind too much of that splitter off, and they don't really know where they're at on heights.
So Trevor Bayne goes to the top of the chart. Here's Matt Yoakum.
Ford's looking strong in the speed department. 7 of the top 10 are blue ovals. Kurt Busch, he's 9th fastest. He ran 2 laps, and then he brought the car back in. He radioed into Tony Gibson. The water temperature had climbed to about 270, and that was pretty much the max that they would like to see. And remember, everything is a learning process with this new Ford. And Tony Gibson was working more on the grill opening, how much tape he can put on that front equates to how much faster that water temperature climbs when they're in qualifying trim. So they're going to cool it down, send him back out in about another 6 minutes here on the 41.
What I love so much about this year, and you guys can help me with this, I just feel something brewing with manufacturers this year. It just seems more heightened than I've seen in the past. And maybe it's just this one move of Stewart-Haas going from Chevrolet to Ford. And now there's more pressure on RCR and Hendrick Motorsports to carry that Chevy banner. And there's more pressure, I think, on the Ford group as to stepping up to compete with, really the Toyotas and Chevrolets who have dominated recently.
I think you're right, and I'll add another element. Furniture Row Racing moving to being a 2-car team and proving last year they were not just a satellite of Joe Gibbs Racing. They're competing as equals, and I think the playing field between manufacturers is the most level that it's been in a long, long time.
I think, but what happened with Stewart-Haas, surprisingly moving to Ford, I think that opened the door for some really, amongst the owners and the manufacturers, I think that opened the door for some pretty good rivalries this year, as you said.
Here's Jamie.
And teammates again with Kevin Harvick now is Clint Boyer, and I just poked my head in the window and said, well, what do you think? Your first run out with this team and this car? And he said, she's fast. And he said, I'm sitting in this seat, I feel like I'm rich. It's just so comfortable. So he definitely means business. He said Mike Bugaravich is doing a great job. They don't even have much tape on the grill, so they're going to play around with that, add a little bit more, and see if they can go out and find a bit more speed. But overall, he's really happy and thrilled to be here and what the car's showing so far.
Hey, Jamie, I need you to remind Clint that I know he lives a pretty simple life, but he is rich, but he can also afford to take that rust off that helmet.
How cool is that?
That's very cool.
That's all hand painted. It's very intricate.
So Clint Boyer replaces Tony Stewart. They changed from Chevrolet to Ford. You know, Clint was a body man. He can paint, okay? He was a body man before he became a full-time racer. But he drives around his hometown now in a rat rod. You know, a car done in primer, but pinstripe and a little faux patina. And that's a rusty bucket.
Yes, it is.
That's old school, guys.
I feel bad for Pegasus on there, you know?
Yeah, that's old school.
The flying red horse.
But, you know, I bet the last time Clint Boyer was in the top 10 in practice may have been 2 years ago.
Well, I want to say a word about Harry Scott, because that's who Boyer drove last year. And Harry Scott expanded his one-car team to a two-car team last year to accommodate Clint Boyer's off-season before he went to replace Tony Stewart. And Harry and his team did everything they could to ramp up to field two competitive cars. And Harry admitted, he said, we took on too much too soon. It didn't go well. They gave it a valiant effort, but at the end of the season, that team shut its doors.
And Mike, you bring up a really interesting conversation, because it was a very unique situation here. Clint Boyer is in a year where he didn't have, you know, the ride at Stewart-Haas because Tony Stewart was going to retire that year. They had to find a place, and he had to find a place where he felt like he could go out and get the best opportunity. And if you looked at Harry Scott's organization prior to that, they actually had some pretty good runs. But unfortunately, it was just too overwhelming for them to take on, and really hurt the whole organization at Harry Scott Racing, actually.
I know how you make a small fortune in racing. You start with a big one.
And now I feel bad for Harry. He has stepped away from the sport, kind of like Carl Edwards did, but he shuttered the team, stepped away, closed down his championship-winning K&N team that he had with Justin Marks. And I talked to him at that banquet, and he said, I might be back. He said, I might not be done with this sport. I love the sport. Yeah. He said, but last year was a really tough.
His intentions were all good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Owners come in and they want to be at the Hendrick Motorsports level, or they want to be at the Stewart-Haas level overnight. And you spend a lot of money trying to catch up. And you're not going to catch up with the Hendrick Motorsports, been in business over 25 years, or Childress, or any of those guys. You don't catch up with them overnight. And you can't spin your way to the top.
I'd like to know how many of the new car owners come in and actually take tours through Hendrick Motorsports and Joe Gibbs Racing and Penske Racing and Stewart-Haas, because I think if you walk through those organizations, it's a pretty big wake-up call to understand just how much goes into getting to that level.
They're factories. We used to race out of shops. You know, a little 10,000, maybe 20,000 square foot shop. These things are factories. We're talking about Penske. We got 450,000 square feet of racing shop. I mean, that's huge.
And here are some of the teams that we see trying to get to that level. We saw Joey Gase a second ago from BK Racing. And here we got Matt DiBenedetto in a new ride for Go Fast Racing for 2017. A lot of movement among drivers there in that area.
I like this guy. I love his attitude. I think he's got some great talent as well, but he's got a lot of personality, whether it be on social media or in his interviews or just, you know, out through the garage area. A great guy. You want a guy like this to be successful, and I hope they find some success with this team this year.
What's his nickname? Guido? Yeah.
I believe that's his middle name.
I think it is.
He needs to be called Guns. Did you see some of they were showing some pictures I saw on social media where he was flexing his muscles. That guy has some big guns.
But you know what helps you here at Daytona and in Talladega as well is you can go get an engine from Roush Yates. You go get an engine from Hendrick Motor. You can get some good engines, and that's really one of the big things that makes you good down here is having that horsepower.
Yeah, those alliances can really get you jump started to get to that level. It might not get you there, but it's certainly a great jump start. But as you know, you're going to pay for it.
Oh, yeah.
Jimmy Johnson just did a slow lap around the track apron. Larry, I'm puzzled.
Yeah, I mean, he never even got up to speed. He just had left pit road, so yeah, something he didn't like, something he felt or something he saw, because he's coming right back.
Larry, what's the mastermind Chad Canals up to?
There's a method to the madness, I can promise you that.
Chad told him to go out, warm it up, run one lap, and bring it back in.
And that may very well be it. Let's get some heat and everything, then we'll cool her down.
Yeah, I think that's probably what it was.
I don't know about that.
I'm a skeptic.
I've said this about Jimmy Johnson over and over again. If that's what Chad tells him to do, he doesn't say why. He doesn't say, that's dumb, I don't think we should do that. He just does it. He's the perfect driver for Chad Canels.
Oh, they make one heck of a team.
7 championships. Proof of that pudding.
You have to believe in one another. You have to have a lot of confidence in one another, and you have to have complete trust. And these guys have been through a lot over the years, but boy, do they trust one another, and they get the results.
All right, 30 minutes of practice are complete. We're going to make a wholesale change. Tune your TV to FS1 for the rest of Daytona 500 qualifying practice right after this break. Welcome to Daytona. The track is open for Daytona 500 qualifying practice. After the first half hour on FS2, we're with you on FS1, presented by Chevrolet for the duration. Top speeds so far. Fords, all the top 4, followed by 3 Toyotas and then 3 more Fords. Welcome back to Daytona. Mike Joy, Darrell Waltrip, Jeff Gordon with you. We've had fun the last half hour. For those of you who were with us on FS2, now we're going to take you the rest of the way as we get ready to see who will be the favorites to win the front row for the Daytona 500.
Well, that's what it's all about, right, is that front row. That is so important to get locked in and know that you're going to be guaranteed that starting position first or second, even though this year it's a little bit different in the duels because there's points on the line, so everybody's going to be pushing hard. But today, just all about raw speed. And I'm questioning, is anybody holding back? We didn't see a Chevrolet in that top 10.
No, not
I
yet.
got to believe there's some Chevys out there that are going to mix it up with those Fords and Toyotas.
And Darrell, there is so much that's new this year. I'm glad we've got 3.5 hours to go through it.
Oh my! I mean, if you just start with Stuart Haas and then switch from Chevrolet to Ford, if you think about Martin Truex Jr. He's got a new teammate and he's got a new paint job on his car. You think about the rookies, Daniel Suarez, who hadn't even driven a lap in a Cup car until last night.
Right.
There's plenty, and then the breaking the race up into second. I don't know. It's going to take us 4 hours to get it all in.
Don't worry, we'll get there. Let's start with something old, something new, something blue, nothing borrowed. Dale Earnhardt Jr. back behind the wheel of a Cup car for the first time since mid-season last year. Now tonight he'll join us in the FS1 booth to call the clash because Alex Bowman, one of his 2 super subs last year, Jeff Gordon being the other, Bowman won a pole and won his way into the clash, so he'll drive the 88 tonight. Dale Jr. will join us.
I'm really excited to have him up in the booth. I think not only is he a great restrictor plate racer, but he knows how to describe it very well. Reminds me so much of his dad. I got to say this about Dale Earnhardt Jr. I think this is the new, and I don't want to say improved, but he just has a different mindset. I think taking time out of the car, reevaluating his life, getting married. You know, I think that this is a rejuvenated Dale Earnhardt Jr. who's excited to be back in the car and has had tremendous fan support of this process.
Let's not call it, certainly not a vacation, an enforced timeout as Dale Earnhardt Jr. dealt with concussion issues. But I think we can all relate. We're all so focused on our job. Nobody wants to take a vacation. I can't afford to take time away. Things will happen while I'm gone. I need to stay here. I need to be shoulder to the wheel every day. And then you take a vacation or some time off and you come back and you're energized, you're focused, you're ready to go, and things are better than they were before you left.
I think you take a lot for granted when you're a Dale Earnhardt Jr. You've been in this sport a long time. You were there when your dad was having success. You've been around this sport your whole life. I think you take a lot of things for granted. And when those things are taken away from you, when you can't do what you love to do, it really makes you look hard and reevaluate what your future is going to look like.
As you say that, look who comes up on the screen and makes me think of exactly what you're saying, DW. Kyle Busch. Look what he went through in that broken leg injury that he had here at Daytona. Look what happened to him when he came back. And I think it's exactly what's going to happen to Dale Earnhardt Jr. is this reevaluation and appreciation that you're given to be able to get behind the wheel of a fast race car with a great race team with an amazing opportunity to do what you love to do. And I think he's going to have similar results as to what Kyle had, where he's going to drive better and be more focused than he's ever been.
Yeah, you think you're pretty good. You know, you're out there racing every week and you're doing pretty good. You win a race every night. You think you're pretty good. But then you take a little time off and all of a sudden you realize I'm not as sharp as I could have been I could have been in better physical condition. I could have had a better thought process. You just go through so much when you're sitting at home or when you're in the gym working out. You get in the best shape you've ever been in your life and you come back and you do it.
You know what I'm a little bit nervous about?
What?
He's been watching the commentators on TV a lot more than he has in the past, too. He's going to come up here and show us a few things up here as well.
Oh, listen, he can. I watched him last year at Talladega when he was up there explaining side drafting and a number of different things that he experiences, and you do too, in the cars. And I was fascinated. I learned things listening to him, and I didn't know.
Yeah, sure. I think we're going to have a lot of fun.
Well, to the business at hand, Denny Hamlin's the defending 500 champion. The last 14 years, the Daytona 500 has not had a repeat pole sitter. 14 different drivers, never a Toyota. They have not won the pole for the 500.
And he just went up to third on our speed charts.
Caution's out. There's a bit of debris down toward turn number 1 they're going to pick up. Not sure just what that is. But the track has been red flagged with Trevor Bayne, Brad Keselowski, Denny Hamlin, Joey Logano, and Ricky Stenhouse, the Fast 5. Among the drivers waiting to get on track to run some practice laps, Michael Waltrip, who has announced that this will be his final Daytona 500. Thought we'd give him a send-off.
You know, I've had the biggest of celebrations.
To the flag, Michael Waltrip wins.
And the most horrific tragedy that I could imagine. Despite all that, I love it. I love that track. I love that event. I can't wait to get there. Can't wait to see that green flag waving one more time.
You know, Michael's final drive will be next Sunday in the 500. That'll be his final Cup start. 30 years of running the Great American Race. This Tuesday on Race Hub on FS1, Tuesday 6 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll relive Michael Waltrip's Daytona 500 career. He'll still be with us on Sunday.
Oh, yeah,
He'll do the race
to work a little bit,
the race walk, you know, the grid walk. Sure.
What I like is he gets to run that 15 number, because that's the number he won the 500 in.
And I know if we get up close, you know, a lot of images from his career, and I mean, what a career it's been. You know him better than anybody, DW. But I want to ask you this in a second, but I mean, what he has done on and off the track, you know, I think to follow in your legacy. I think you've had big shoes for your little brother to fill, but what a character he's been, and a great personality, and also a great competitor. But what makes him so good here at Daytona?
You know, he's been that way ever since he got in there. I can remember back in the Country Time car, the old number 30 Pontiac. He ran up front. He go to Daytona and Talladega, and I can never figure it out. And then one day I was looking at him. He's got a size 14 shoe, and I think he just locks that baby down, and he never lifts.
He's pushing a little bit further than anybody else.
Got a little hole in the firewall, and he pushed it right on through there. But what makes Michael so good overall? Michael is a sum of all the parts. He's a good race car driver. He's got a great personality. He's a sponsor's dream. He's an ambassador for the sport. He can do it all. Yep. And, you know, there's a lot of guys that can hold a pretty wheel, but they maybe don't have the most personality in the world. I think my brother kind of feels the bill for all.
And I think he's a thinker too. You know, here at these restrictor plate tracks, you got to pick and choose the lines and pay attention to things happening behind you and get that momentum. Listen to your spotter. There's a lot of things going on here, and I think he has that kind of capacity to be able to handle that information.
So Michael and Matt Kenseth, who we're seeing right here, are two of only 11 drivers who've done what?
Two Daytona 500s?
Well, 2 or more Daytona 500s. Yep. And they're 2 of only 10 active Daytona 500 winners who will start the race Sunday. Here's Matt Yoakum on another.
And that's Jimmy Johnson in the 48 car. He's chasing his third 500 win on next Sunday. And You see Jimmy sitting in the car patiently waiting for his chance to go out and make a run. Teams know that, you know, they typically will get in 3 to 5 runs if they're lucky during this practice in their qualifying setup. And simply what happened was the 48 was sitting about 18th in line. Chad Knaus wanted to make one adjustment to the car, and since traffic was moving slowly, much like I-77 north of Charlotte, they finally decided to jump the line, coast around on the apron, come back in, make the adjustment. They made an adjustment in the front of the car and under the left rear portion of the car, and then sent him back out.
You know, I think that Hendrick has continued to expand their information sharing among their teammates, and I'm wondering if one of their teammates, if maybe Chase Elliott or Casey Kane, because I don't think Dale Jr. had been out yet, if they maybe were hitting the racetrack or something happened when they went out on their run, that Chad got that information and knew the same thing was going to happen to them.
Good point. Two people that I can't follow on Twitter anymore, Larry Mack and crew chief Rodney Childers, because every other tweet is about the backup on I-77 north of Charlotte that Matt just described. Jamie.
And there he is, Dale Jr. He's ready to go. He's been standing in this garage for a good 45 minutes, patiently waiting for the team to get all the decals on and get this car ready to go. So he's waiting for his opportunity to get out on the track. It's been 7 months, you guys, since he's raced, so he's ready to go. And for all the Junior fans that love to know what car he's in, well, remember last year, Amelia, Mike? We all talked about Amelia. Well, she was finally put to rest. She's in the graveyard at Junior's house, and this is a brand new car.
I thought you were going to tell me that Amelia went to the South Pacific and we don't know where she is. But that's okay.
When we talk about the newness and format and sponsors and different things, here's a new paint scheme on this Nationwide 88 Chevrolet.
I want to read you this tweet from Dale Jr.'s wife, Amy. She says, "I really can't express how proud I am of Dale Jr. for working so hard to get back in his car. Took a lot of sweat, tears, and patience. Hashtag go get him." Welcome back to Daytona, where the Fords of Trevor Bayne and Brad Keselowski are still fastest. Denny Hamlin third, Joey Logano, Ricky Stenhouse the top 5. Fast 5 right now. 33 drivers have taken to the track. There are 38 cars here for 36 spots. That means 6 open cars for 4 available positions. Elliott Sadler, Timmy Hill, Reed Sorensen, Brendan Gaughan, Corey LaJoie, and DJ Kennington are the 6 drivers fighting for the 4 remaining available positions in the 500 field.
You know, being down here years after year after year, always the one thing that, and Larry will tell you this, always, what's the wind doing? Which way's the wind blowing? And today it looks to me like, looking at the flags in the infield, we got a nice tailwind. And boy, how you come off turn 2 and you pick up that tailwind, you're going to be flying when you get down into turn 3. Now, it's going to hurt you a little into 1, but you're going to make a lot of time down that back.
Well, I know. I always preferred it that direction, going down the back straightaway, because there's no grandstands in the turns and on the back straightaway, so you get the full effect of it.
Exactly.
As you come around to the front straightaway, you've got all the grandstands. There's huge buildings and grandstands over here and suites and everything else where we're at. That blocks a lot of that headwind, so you don't get as much of the effects of the headwind as you do the nice effect of the tailwind.
Oh yeah.
Larry, in all your years here as a crew chief, how concerned were you about wind when you're practicing in this situation?
Well, when we were testing, we had data that would tell us about the wind speed and the wind direction, and that way we could factor that into the changes. Here, once you're here for the race weekend and you don't have that data, you have to go a lot on what you feel like the flags are doing to be able to evaluate a change. And sometimes you have to say, hey, we got to go back and try it again because the wind was different from one run to the other.
And Larry, I think you'd agree on this. This is one of those races for qualifying anyway where your draw does matter, because the wind typically picks up here in the afternoon. And so I know a lot of times we wanted to go early before that wind picked up too much, because you'd rather have no wind than have a gusty tailwind down the back straightaway, but a headwind on the front straightaway.
One other advantage going early, remember what we talked about earlier, is having heat in the hubs and the drivetrain and the gear and everything. If you can leave that garage area with some heat in those components and go early, it still may hold a little bit of that heat.
And we're talking, I guarantee you the pole is only going to be a few hundreds, and that's what that little bit of difference makes, a few hundreds.
All right, we're watching Jimmy Johnson on his 2nd lap of his first run. Here's Matt.
Mike, a few of the old teammates of Jeff Gordon's down on the 24 are wondering if he might have been texting with someone down here, because he hit on it perfectly. The 48 team listened to the comments that Chase Elliott and Alan Gustafson were making on the radio concerning the 24's first run. Significant bottoming out. In fact, when the car came back in, I looked at the left rear quarter panel, and the Goodyear rubber had almost sprayed because it bottomed out so hard. It was like a spray going back from the tire to where almost where the fuel opening is. So they made some changes on the 24 for Chase Elliott, and those changes also carried over to the 48 of Johnson.
And Mike, those little things like he said, well, that can't hurt anything. Anytime that car hits the racetrack, it's like touching the brake. Anytime something's rubbing, it's taking a bit of speed out of that car. But we're talking about hundreds here when we get ready to run for the pole tomorrow.
Well, speaking of minute, Larry can tell us about a minute change in the rules package for Daytona that may have a major impact.
Yeah, Mike, I don't know if we've ever had an off season with so many changes, but not much for the Daytona 500. We're going to use our Ford cutaway car. It has to do with that aluminum restrictor plate under the throttle body. Those holes right there last year were 57/64 of an inch in diameter. What NASCAR did is they shrunk those holes by a 64th of an inch. You can't even visually see that difference, but the word in the garage area, it's about 12 to 14 horsepower. A good rule of thumb is every 7 horsepower is about a mile-per-hour reduction. So I think you'll probably see the pole speed 1 to 2 miles per hour slower than a year ago. Why did they do this? They know these guys never quit working on restrictor plate engines. 1 or 2 horsepower gain is huge from one race to the other.
Yeah, and then what they do, Mike, when they change the restrictor plate, the engine guys will go in there and they'll change where the power band is, where that maybe reduced a little bit of the top end power, but they'll pick it up with torque.
And it's not about the speed that they're running here by themselves. It's about in the draft. As we saw last night in the clash practice, they were 196, 197. They'll probably be all up to 200 miles per hour tonight in that race.
I hope so.
Me too.
You're looking at the Daytona infield in the $1 Million Motor Coach lot. I guess now they'd have to call it the $2 Million Motor Coach lot, because things have really risen to new heights with some of these custom-made buses. Jeff Gordon's got a new one, I understand, for this year. Then there it is.
That's old school right there. You know, I was inspired by Clint Boyer's helmet. Yes. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to go back to the old school paint scheme. This is brand new. We just got this out of the paint shop.
Yeah, if you open that back door up, there's a car in there.
Yeah, it's Dave Dion's. He used to haul with a school bus and a ramp in the back. You're right. Jamie.
Well, Landon Castle, it's the same team this year, but a different car, different sponsor. Things are new. There's other things that are new. Tell me what you're working on here.
Oh, you were commenting on my shoes, and I was like, you know, this first practice session at Daytona, it's like you run in the hauler and put on another pair of new shoes, kind of break them in, like you're scuffing sticker tires or something. But no, I'm really excited. This year's going to be a lot of fun. Loves Travel Stops is on my car, which they've been with Front Row for a while now. So I was pretty honored when I got the opportunity to represent them. So I think this is the most prepared the team's ever been. They're really positive about this season. I've got the same group of guys that I had last year, so we're just kind of keeping that chemistry going, and hopefully we have some success.
You're always optimistic, and it's always good to see you, Landon. Good luck.
Thanks, Jamie.
You know, when I think of all the changes that have happened over the offseason format, points are going to be awarded in the duels next Thursday. This is one of the teams that it comes to mind to me right away that can take advantage of that situation here at Daytona. Yeah. They can change up their pit strategy. They're very fast on the restrictor plate tracks. Landon's a great restrictor plate driver, and I think that there's a great opportunity for them to score points coming out of here that maybe they wouldn't have seen in the past.
Agree. Strategy involved.
Oh, yeah.
Here's another team with changes. A.J. Allmendinger at JTG Doherty Racing for the first time has a teammate. Chris Buescher is on loan to that team for 2017, so it's now a two-car effort, the 37 and 47.
You know, I'm a big fan of AJ's. I love his driving style. I love his attitude. He's always, you know, just got a big smile on his face and having a good time. But he gets serious behind the wheel. And then you take his teammate Chris Buescher. I think that he is, you know, just a fantastic young talent. We don't hear a lot from him. He's pretty reserved and quiet. But I must say, don't forget, he is a past Xfinity champion. He knows how to get it done, and I love his style, and I love his abilities.
I think so, and Trent Owens is a good little crew chief. I think that's a really potent combination.
You know, guys, we always talk about drivers climbing the NASCAR ladder. I think when you think about Tad and Jody Geschechter, there's a great example of owners climbing the ladder. In 1995, they were a one-car Xfinity Series team in the backyard shop of Tad and Jody Geschechter, had a dirt floor in it. 5 employees. Now today, a 2-car operation in Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series.
Now, the flip side of that is Richard Petty Motorsports. Last year, they were a 2-car team. When the funding ended for Brian Scott's ride, that car went away. So RPM comes in here with just the 43 for Eric Almirola.
Yeah, you know, you think 2 is better than 1, and there's more information sharing. So I think they're going to really have to tap in, you know, to their other Ford counterparts and try to gather as much information. You heard Kevin Harvick talk a lot about how Ford is working with them. Well, this is one of the teams that's going to need to take advantage of that because they don't have that other teammate.
Look, I would take 1 really good race car over 2 mediocre cars. And sometimes I think you outside of your resources, people, everything else. I think sometimes you're better off to just focus on 1 car, have that car be as dominant as it can be, rather than have 2 mediocre.
Just like we saw with Harry Scott.
Exactly.
Want to meet the happiest driver in Daytona right this minute?
Yes.
Here's Jamie.
Trevor Bayne, one guy who really knows how to get around this place. So far, it looks like you guys have good speed, including your teammate, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. You guys feeling the effects of downsizing and being able to put all your resources into 2 teams?
Yeah, we're setting the bar pretty high here to keep that up for the rest of the year. But it's practice 1, day 1 for the season, and I'm just really, really proud of what Jimmy Finnig and the guys at Roush Fenway Racing on the Super Speedway program have done over the last year or 2. Last year we had some good runs at the Super Speedways. We're showing back up with speed at Daytona, and I'm just really thankful for everybody at Roush Fenway Racing that's sticking it out, that's working hard. I've got a lot of new partners on my car this year. It's going to be a little weird. I'll probably mess up. Call it the Advocare Ford every weekend because I'm so used to that, but with Liberty National life insurance coming on board, and then with Performance Plus Motor Oil and Advocare coming back, we're excited to go to work for them, and hopefully we can keep this Ford up front all week.
All right, thanks. Good luck in qualifying tomorrow.
Trevor Bayne, winner of the Daytona 500. In that tandem draft pushing situation, boy, Bayne had a fast Wood Brothers car all week, and everybody knew it.
Yeah, remember who his mentor was that whole week. Got to stay real close to him.
I remember that right up until he said, you know what, I want to go win this race. I'm leaving you.
No, Jeff and he were real tight that week, and Jeff paid Trevor so many compliments. The other part was his birthday that day, and so he had an incredible finish, obviously.
Well, this is great to see Roush Fenway Racing on the top of the board. They've had some struggles over the last couple of years, and I really, we were just talking about this, about spreading yourself too thin. I'm not so sure that going down to 2 teams isn't going to be a huge benefit to them.
I think so. What happened in the offseason, Greg Biffle stepped away, ended his association with Roush Fenway with, I believe, a year left on his contract, and said, no, I'm done. I'm not going to do this. Spent most of the offseason kind of looking around and listening for what might be available, and then announced on Twitter today he's going to do some TV work. He's not going to drive full-time in NASCAR this year, so Roush Fenway is a 2-car team. Welcome back to Daytona. There's the fastest car in town, Trevor Bayne, 192.3. 10 Fords in the top 16. He tops them all in his Roush Fenway Fusion. There's the fastest Chevrolet, Chase Elliott, in 9th place. Quickest Toyota's Denny Hamlin in 4th. Now, 5 cars have not been on track. 3 of them are what we call open cars, non-charter cars, but 2 of them are the pair of Eric Jones and Martin Truex for Furniture Row Racing. Matt Yoakum, what's up?
Mike, down here in the 78 garage, moments ago I spoke with Cole Pern. He simply said they are having issues getting the car through inspection, and I asked him what area in particular. He said the template area is what they're having issues with, so work continues on the 78 trying to get it past inspection so it can hit the racetrack.
Wow. We saw last night in the Clash practice where they didn't get out to the very, very end. kind of similar situation, and sounds like they're running into those same issues here today.
Yeah, I don't know about templates, so they're up on the back of the car here working on it.
Remember, guys, this is a brand new type of race car, the 2018 Toyota Camry. And I know talking to some of the Toyota teams is there seems to be a discrepancy between the grid of templates that NASCAR has here for inspection, which is the official grid, and maybe the grid that the teams have back at their shop.
Well, to further explain, there are no 2018 street Camrys to work off of or to put that template on other than the one that was shown at the Detroit Auto Show, introducing both the race car and the street car simultaneously, because NASCAR has a new forward-looking approval process that was used for this car, where a manufacturer can submit a car for competition approval before it's released to the general public. This is a departure from years past, but it's something the OEMs, Ford, Chevrolet, and Toyota, asked for this process so they could put a car on track in advance of the introduction of the road-going vehicle, which will come out in showrooms this fall.
And one other caveat to that is it doesn't have to be a brand new car. It could be an amendment to the car. Let's say it's a change to the street car that is going to be a fascia change. They can then incorporate that into the new race car as well. But the one thing I think here, it's not all the Toyotas, it's this one Toyota. So I'm wondering if they didn't push things a little bit further out there in Colorado.
Well, they're working on this car all over. I mean, they're working on the front end up there. Look like they're trying to get something adjusted up there. You see where they've been sanding on the C-pillar back here. Now, back in the day, we wouldn't have used sandpaper. We'd have probably used a hammer. But anyway, I think that tells you how tight the tolerances are on these cars when you can sand on it and get it through inspection.
Joey Logano, 6th fastest. I believe this is his second run. His fastest lap was his 5th lap. He's run a total of 8. Two hours and 51 minutes left in pre-qualifying practice. Welcome back to Daytona, where Daniel Suarez has taken over the keys to the number 19, vacated in the offseason by Carl Edwards, who stepped away from the sport, elevating the Xfinity Series champion into the Cup Series. Here's how the Joe Gibbs team sits in practice right now. Earlier this week, our friends at Race Hub previewed Joe Gibbs Racing.
Joe Gibbs Racing has set the standard for team performance with dominant seasons in recent years. JGR seemed to have found a proven formula, but even they faced a sudden and surprising changeup.
So I'm stepping away from full-time driving in the Cup Series.
It shocked the whole industry about Carl kind of up and moving on, you know, and making the decision that he didn't want to race anymore.
Definitely really surprised, but knowing Carl, you know, he kind of been known to sort of do his own thing, and when he gets his mind made up, kind of pulls the trigger on it.
In 2016, Carl Edwards charged through one of his best years to date.
Carl Edwards dominates Bristol.
Checker flag. You're the fan, dude.
And driver number 19 showed unshaking resilience in the chase.
Sorry, bud. Don't be sorry. We're going to go win Texas.
Resilience that demonstrated character even when he couldn't bounce back on the track.
Joey Logano drives Carl Edwards into the wall.
I'll say good hard racing. Shook my hand. Say go get it. Class act right there.
Stepping into Edwards' ride is Daniel Suarez. In 2016, Suarez won 3 Xfinity Series races.
A last lap pass on Kyle Busch to get your first win ever.
Proud of Daniel. He's done a lot of work and done a lot of things to try to get to this point.
Watching his progression, truck and Xfinity, to where he ended the season last year. Obviously, he has the talent. You could see that and how much he's learned over the last couple of years, and the race he was able to put together at Homestead to be able to win a championship. I think there's always a lot to learn, you know, from the new guys coming in.
Daniel Suarez, campeón de la Xfinity.
I know that I have a lot to learn, but I couldn't ask for a better opportunity that this kind of team with a lot of experience to start this process.
My team, I know that is capable to win the championship. I just need to be patient. The most important thing is to take everything step by step. I think that is going to be the best.
Expectations are wide open for 2017. You know, we got a brand new Toyota Camry coming out, so I'm pumped about getting behind the wheel of that thing. But then after that, just looking forward to making sure we can win races, win segments, get those bonus points, and be championship eligible at Homestead.
Kyle Busch qualified alongside Edwards for the Championship 4 at Homestead. He wasn't able to defend his 2015 title, but 2016 was still a solid year with 4 standout wins.
For the second year in a row, Kyle Busch wins at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
JGR comes off a year with a Brickyard win and a Daytona 500 championship.
Here comes Hamlin, storming up the outside of the racetrack.
Daytona 500 champion. Oh, we got baby.
Denny Hamlin's 3 wins showed his continued skill on distinct and diverse tracks.
Winner at home. Yes, sir.
Denny Hamlin wins at Watkins Glen International.
Good job, Denny. I never would have dreamed this.
Last year we had a very young team. We're going to build upon that success, knowing we did it with a first-time team, first-time crew chief in the Cup Series. Overall, I know that we're going to be competitive. I'm sure that our FedEx team will be ready to go, and hopefully we start off with another Daytona 500.
Gibbs placed all 4 drivers in the 2016 chase thanks to another strong year from Matt Kenseth. The 2003 champion continued his resurgent drive with wins at Dover and Loudon.
I never lose sight of how hard this is and how lucky we are to be able to do this.
Wow. You earned that one, brother.
Even if the JGR lineup witnessed an unusual offseason, it is still one of the most potent rosters in racing. Proof that people are the critical component driving performance.
Obviously starting at the top with Coach. It's a great organization. Great season last year. Got really great teammates, good crew chiefs over there. Really feel like it's about the people. And hopefully we can all run up front and perform like we did last year.
12 wins, 10 poles, 84 top 10s for Joe Gibbs Racing last year. And putting Daniel Suarez in the 19, this is not unfamiliar ground because Joe Gibbs has built this organization like he built his Super Bowl winning NFL teams with lots of depth. When Tony Stewart walked away from Joe Gibbs Racing to take over half ownership of what's now Stewart-Haas, they had Joey Logano at the ready, plugged him into that seat. Yes, there was a learning curve. Yes, there were teething issues, but Joey Logano's now a superstar of this sport. No reason to think that it will be much different with Daniel Suarez.
Did a very similar thing with Denny Hamlin when they put Denny Hamlin in the 11 cars. So they have a kind of a track record of being able to take these young drivers and put them with these experienced crew chiefs and get pretty good results.
I just think of this driver lineup and how impressive this driver lineup is. The amount of experience that this lineup has, championships, race wins, and now bringing in a young driver. I loved what Matt Kenseth said there. He goes, we have the opportunity to learn from somebody young and new. I mean, you know, they're looking at it as, hey, this is only going to make us better because, like you've said many times, CW, what you don't know, you don't know. And so a young driver goes into it with a fresh outlook and mindset, and the sky is the limit, and he'll push the limits where maybe sometimes a veteran driver is going to feel out and try to take their time to get to that limit.
You know, I had a conversation with Dave Rogers this morning, crew chief for Daniel Suarez. The first time Daniel had ever been in a Cup car was at a Phoenix test earlier this month. And he said, yeah, we worked on making our race car fast, but we had to work on things this young man has never seen or encountered. He'd never seen a digital dash. He never in 2 years of Xfinity Series racing had to pull into a pit stall where there was a car sitting in front of him and behind him. We set up cones to simulate that. He said, plus, we needed it to run out of fuel, electronic fuel injection, because it's different than running out of fuel with a carburetor. So they worked on a lot of things 2 days at Phoenix above and beyond just making a race car go fast.
Daniel Suarez is the 4th different driver in 4 seasons for crew chief Dave Rogers. That is the NASCAR inspection station where templates are going on. Eric Jones, number 77. The big claw template. And the template itself, the silver pieces, those go on every car. Then each manufacturer, you can see, has specific labeled pieces for the contours of that individual body. But where those silver templates hit, those are commonized aerodynamic sensitive points on the body that are common to all three manufacturers.
And these teams have this same contraption at their race shop. And so when they get to the racetrack, NASCAR expects them to fit these templates. And I don't know, Larry had mentioned that there was maybe a discrepancy in the templates that this team felt like they had at their race shop versus what they're seeing here at the racetrack.
The toughest part on that silver part of that template, there are about 7 what they call hard points. Has to touch the body. No tolerance whatsoever.
If I had to guess, Larry, that has not changed.
No.
So they should not be off in those areas.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. to 10th on the speed chart. In his Hendrick Chevrolet, Clint Boyer has jumped up to 3rd. So it's Trevor Bayne's Ford, Matt Kenseth's Toyota, Clint Boyer's Ford, the top 3, then Stenhouse and Keselowski.
You know what stands out to me right now, Mike? How close the times are. Look how tight this is. 46.8 at the top with Trevor Bayne, but you go all the way down here to 13th and it's still 40 in the 46s at a 46.98. That is really competitive.
And I'd imagine that big claw template has a lot to do with that.
Yes,
this
it
track
does.
being so fast and so aero sensitive that all of those common aerodynamic points, even though there is a lot of area for each manufacturer to have their own body shape identity, as you see this Ford Fusion, those common aero points mean a lot. Here's what Jeff was talking about. Look how tight this is. 13/100ths of a second separate the top 10.
So you think, well, where do we find an advantage? Obviously, in the engine department, every manufacturer's pushing the limits as much as they can, but they're under a lot of the same tolerances, just like that claw. They're under those same types of rules with the engine. So, you know, and if we say one manufacturer might have a little bit of an edge over another, whether it be in power or aerodynamics, we are talking the finest amount.
But you use the key word, Jeff. 17 and Hendrick Motorsports.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. will not race the driver of the 88 suffering from concussion-like symptoms.
In my mind, my plan is to race more.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. still out with concussion-like symptoms.
Being out of the car certainly made me anxious to get back in, and I'm happy to be able to come back here and continue to compete. Got real close to not being able to compete, you know, got real close to being someone else's decision whether I competed or not. And I always said, you know, people have asked me ever since I turned 40 when I would retire and all that, and all I wanted to do was be able to make that choice myself. I don't know when I'm going to stop racing, but I want to be able to make that choice and not have it made for me. Being out of the car, you hope you could come back and jump right back in and not miss a beat, but this is a top series, and any time away, you're getting behind. So I'm really anxious and curious as to where we shake up early in the season, how we can do, how competitive we can be, what, if any, learning curve is there for me.
Here comes Dale Earnhardt Jr. He'll rumble out of the pocket, pull down to the inside of the racetrack. Dale Earnhardt Jr. goes to the lead of the Daytona 500.
I can't come back and not, you know, give it my best and not run 100%. The team wouldn't want me in the car if I wasn't going as hard as I can. So we'll go out there and race, try to get wins, but I feel confident about my health and being able to get out there and do the job.
My expectations are to build off of where we ended last year.
A number of drivers brought their A game to the race tonight. Casey Kane, right now he is running 6th.
The last 12 races of the last season, we made a lot of gains. We were very consistent, and we were working in the right direction. And as a company, Hendrick has worked in those same directions, and as a team, we have been too. We started the day after Homestead and have been preparing and working on everything that we can to do a better job in 2017. And if all that happens, it'll be a very successful and a happy season.
I had lots of memorable learning moments last year. I got the real treat of the NASCAR roller coaster week 1 at Daytona, from the highs of having the pole for the 500.
It's a weird feeling for me to hear Jeff Gordon in the booth talking to you in the car. It's weird for you. I know it's weird for me. Thanks for everything, boss.
And then wrecking 20 laps in.
Out of the 4th turn, one car goes sliding.
I think just realizing how fast things can go from top to bottom and the other way around.
Thanks, fellas. Go get them. Welcome to the chase, Chase. You did it, bud. Good job.
One thing I'm excited about, which I haven't had in the past few years, is having the same crew chief for 2 years in a row. I really enjoy working with Alan last year, and I think he's very underrated in what he does and just how hard he works at trying to make our race team go. So I think for us, just about starting another year, trying to improve upon areas that we wanted to get better in, or areas that we struggled in, areas I struggled in, and kind of keeping it as simple as that.
My expectations are to get a pole. It's not our best thing. Win a couple races and then be in the Final Four. Of course, I want to be the champion, but with how tricky that final race can be, there's no guarantees there. But I feel like the Lowe's 48 car should be in that Final Four every year.
Jimmy Johnson, a walk-off for the ages.
You are looking at 7-time champion. Oh my God! No way! Yeah! Yeah! 7-time champion, Jimmy Johnson.
Do you have less pressure on you this year because you've already got the 7th championship to tie the record, or more because you're going for the 8th?
I'm really content with where I'm at and happy with where I'm at, so I guess less pressure. Truthfully, felt like there hasn't been a lot of pressure on me through 6 and 7 because I never thought I'd have 1 to start with. I feel a larger responsibility in being a real leader at Hendrick Motorsports and being there for my teammates and team members. I feel a stronger calling for being involved in the Drivers' Council and a part of NASCAR and trying to help the sport. Absolutely, I'm showing up to win races and championships, but I feel almost more pressure to handle that part correctly than I do to go out and win an 8th. Some of that could be that with Chad Knaus running your race team, most of the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, and you're in good shape. And I know that side. I'm starting my 16th season. But I'm trying really hard to not let that pressure be on me. It's there. It shows up if you want it or not. And I'm just trying to manage it and have a good time through it all.
That's a look at Hendrick Motorsports, led by Jimmy Johnson, who looks for title number 8. Led all drivers on the win list last season. We thought winning 7 would be impossible with all of the format changes and the 4 drivers all in, somebody wins. At Homestead, they found a way.
Yeah, well, we've seen it all, though. We've seen him win all 7 championships. We've seen him win all 80 races from right here. And so I'm so impressed. I think it starts with ownership, though. Rick Hendrick is Jeff, hands-on.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he sent me pictures of him working on a race car last year. When the team was struggling a little bit, he got in there and he said, look, boys, let me dive in there and help you. And so I think it starts with ownership.
He's very competitive. What I find so interesting watching Jimmy, he's this humble, very reserved, down-to-earth guy, and you think, how can that guy win so many races and championships? But I'm telling you, besides what he mentioned about Chad Knaus and that race team and Rick Hendrick and the whole organization, when he straps that helmet on, he goes to another level. I actually had a chance to spend some time with him during the offseason, and I skied with him. I was snowboarding, and he was skiing. And he does it in everything, whether he's riding, going cycling or exercising or racing. The guy just, once he gets into that mode, he goes to another level, and it's very impressive, and it's not surprising that he's won 7 championships.
But it's contrary to what you think of for a driver. Most drivers I know, sorry fellas, are control freaks. They want to manage every part of their being and every moment of every day.
I think that's what makes him so great, though, Mike. He takes instructions. I mean, he'll listen to anybody. If the spotter, Chad, Rick, he listens to everybody, and then he applies it. He doesn't just let it go in one ear and out the other. He applies it, and then he gets great results.
He likes to be coached.
Yeah, he does.
Now, I think the key to Hendrick Motorsports this year, let's not forget, as much as we highlight Jimmy Johnson winning 7 championships, not another Hendrick car won a race last year. There's a lot of pressure on that organization to spread that throughout this organization, and I think they put a lot of effort and work into making sure that that happens this year, and I'm really anxious to see the results of not just Jimmy, but those other 3.
At the current pace, Jimmy Johnson could hit 100 victories within the next 4 seasons. Wow, that's quite a number. Let's recap the first 2 hours of this marathon practice session for Daytona 500 qualifying. Clint Boyer has the fast time, the quickest of 6 Fords in the top 10. Fastest Chevy is Jimmy Johnson, was 6th at the 2-hour mark, now 7th. And 4 cars, including both the Furniture Row cars, have yet to practice. Along with Timmy Hill and Reed Sorensen, Eric Jones and Martin Truex have not yet been on the track map.
But Mike, good news, both Furniture Row cars have been approved by NASCAR for competition, so you will see both the 77 and 78 out on the racetrack here shortly. And Joe Garone, president of Furniture Row, so the issues not as severe on the 77 as they are on the 78, but were they similar? What were the issues tolerance-wise?
Yeah, they were very similar, and I mean, you're dealing with thousandths of an inch on these overall grids, and what you end up doing is you fix one area, and it's off on the other area on the other side of the car, and you just keep going back and forth and back and forth, and it's a situation where you just don't want to panic. We have plenty of practice time, take our time, get it right, and that's kind of what we did here.
There was some speculation maybe your grid back at the shop might be a tick off compared to the one here.
Yeah, well, we have to take it all the way out to Denver, Colorado, so sometimes that's a concern. And we do everything we can to ensure they're dead on. But again, you're dealing with thousandths of an inch, so we're fine. We know what we have now. We know what we need to do back at the shop, and we'll move forward.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, thank you.
Jamie?
Well, Matt, so far in this practice, a really nice showing by the Roush Fenway Fords. And Ricky Stenhouse Jr. was in the garage moments ago. He went back out on track now, but I spoke to him, and he's working with the new crew chief and Brian Patty. And Patty was with Greg Biffle last year. So first time on track together. He said things are going very well. They've spent a lot of time in the offseason going to dinners together, understanding what each other wants. Brian was just down. You see him there on the left-hand side, was underneath the car, was in the front of the car, putting on the tape, being very specific. And I asked about winning the pole for tomorrow, and Ricky just took a big, deep breath and said it would be huge. At this point, I don't even care what happens in the race. Just getting that pole tomorrow would mean everything. Mike?
And it would extend the string. We have 14 different pole winners the last 14 years for the 500. You see the red flag out. Reed Sorensen got out on the track, but looked like this coming down the straightaway.
That's not good.
One of the cars that has to either time or race its way into the Daytona 500 with a little trouble early. The car is the Firebird 1, a GM styling exercise from the mid-50s when everybody wanted their cars to look like the jet age. And the chief stylist to GM, Harley Earl, was a great friend of Big Bill France. Hence, the Harley Earl Trophy that's presented to each Daytona 500 winner.
Boyer, look at that. Boyer at the top of the list.
How big of a smile must he have on his face right now?
Talk about knocking the rust off. Maybe knock some off that helmet. Looks pretty cool, that rust bucket.
Dale Jr., 11th.
No rust there, huh?
Yeah, you know, Chase Elliott, that car, how many poles in a row is that 24 car
Oh,
won?
gosh. Yeah, it was like 4 in a row.
4 or
2
5,
years.
I think.
I mean, 2 for the 500.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like on restrictor plates, it went for like 3 or 4 in a row.
Exactly.
Yeah, Alan Gustafson and his team over there at Hendrick and engine department, Jeff Andrews, his guys, they really have their act together on these restrictor plate
Boys,
tracks.
we may have to repave this track.
Look at that
grin. Yeah, you know what he's saying? That old girl's running pretty good.
He's thinking, oh, what a difference a year makes.
Cleaning up oil from Reed Sorensen's car, which appeared to go out on track without an oil fitting properly tightened. Cleanup continues. Daytona Day next Sunday on Fox. Our coverage begins 11 Eastern on FS1 with race day and continues at 1 p.m. on Fox. Here's a recap of the fast times so far. The Fast Five, 3 Fords, 2 Toyotas, with Jimmy Johnson the quickest Chevy in 7. We've done a hot swap down in the garage area for the final 2 hours of this practice session. Here's Chris Neville.
Yeah, Mike, you were talking about no rust being on these drivers. Definitely no rust on Dale Earnhardt Jr., currently 11th on the board. How does it feel to be back in the 88?
It's good to be out there running some laps, doing some work. Cars seems to be doing all right. Really hard to tell where you line up against all these guys as they're all out there doing something a little bit different, running different laps, more laps, different lines and stuff like that. So hopefully we're going to get out there tomorrow and have a shot at the pole. We'd love to get on the front row, take a little pressure off of us for the qualifying races and all that stuff. So, but yeah, it's been great. It's great weather. It's really kind of cool and comfortable. And like I say, there's been no problems with the car so far, so it's been smooth.
Well, before we have qualifying tomorrow, we've got the Clash tonight. You're not going to drive. You're going to be in the booth with us. Are you excited about that?
Always look forward to getting up there and getting an opportunity to see the race from a different perspective. I've not worked with the Fox guys, so being in there with Daryl and Jeff and Mike will be great. And hopefully I'll learn a thing or two. And there's a lot of experience up there, so I'll be happy just to get a word in here and there. But it's gonna be a great race. I'm excited for Alex and hope that he has a great experience and maybe comes out with a win. It's gonna be pretty exciting to watch.
Well, congratulations on the wedding and good luck tomorrow, Vince.
Thanks a lot, Chris. Of course, Dale Jr., one of the biggest stories in the offseason. Maybe close behind was the replacement with Carl Edwards stepping aside and Daniel Suarez stepping in to the 19 car. Now, at times when you have a driver switch inside their office, inside that cockpit, there's going to be some significant changes because each driver is so particular about how he wants his area that he's going to work in. But talking to the interior specialist for this 19 team, they said Suarez actually is very similar in his needs to Carl Edwards. In fact, he's using the same exact seat that Edwards used last year. Now, it has a different insert specifically to fit Suarez, and the pedal position a little different, the seat position a little different, but not any significant changes at all for Daniel Suarez. They said he has not been high maintenance at all as he gets ready to make his debut in the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series. Now, I talked to some other interior specialists in the garage area about some drivers that might have been more high maintenance. I don't want to mention any names specifically, Jeff Gordon, but where would you rate yourself on the high maintenance scale for your driver comfort?
I was probably towards the top. I was very particular about the way I wanted that seat. I was even particular whether it was a fingerprint on the windshield. So
I liked all the mirrors.
I was high maintenance.
I think you were the first guy I saw with all those mirrors in the car. You had a mirror on the dash. You had the mirror up high. You had mirrors on the side. You had a lot of mirrors in that car. Were they all looking behind you, or was some of them looking at yourself? How am I looking in here?
That's the one you had. You had the visor mirror, so you could check your look.
I look pretty good.
Hey, I believe in the details, whether it's building the race car or behind the wheel.
Looking good. You got to look good, man.
Another hour and 38 minutes of this. Yes, coming right up. Welcome back to Daytona 500 qualifying practice on FS1. Mike Joy, Darrell Waltrip, Jeff Gordon, Larry Mack with you. Chris Neville, Vince Welch down in the garage area. And we've now had 38 of the 42 cars on track. Still awaiting the appearance of Furniture Row. They have cleared inspection to come out into the line and get ready to go, along with 2 of the open cars. Well, we were kidding Larry about being able to dissect why the launch didn't go off at Cape Canaveral, but you should see all the toys Larry has at his disposal to show you how these cars work.
Well, I want to first commend all the guys and girls at FS1 and Fox for working on all these projects. Now, this is the underside of the car. It's one of the places that teams have some liberties to work. And I want you to look at things that hang down like this, like the bell housing, like these exhaust pipes right here. This is the rear end housing right here, the fuel cell. Those are things that disturb the air. Now, as you see the air approach red, that's the highest pressure area of that car. As you can see, though, Jeff and Daryl, as the air goes underneath the car, it becomes less pressure, and as it exits the car, it goes back to high pressure. So once it leaves the splitter, goes underneath, even with things disturbing the air, it's much less pressure than when that air approaches the front splitter.
I absolutely love that graphic, because this is something we just don't see a lot of, and you won't hear the teams talk a lot about working the underside of these cars, but they have worked the bodies on top tremendous amount, but there's so many little areas that they can work with underneath the car. We talk about having a car that's really good on drag for high speeds, but where do you find the downforce? Well, you can possibly get that downforce without a drag penalty by really working the underside of these race cars.
Guy told me, one of the crew chiefs told me they moved the oil tank, just moved it up a little bit, like a ½ inch, picked up downforce. Wow. Just moved the oil tank ½ inch.
If the flow of that air can be unobstructed and continue the speed of the air and the pressure areas Larry talked about, that is just free downforce and speed.
Now, we talk a lot about aero. The Wood brothers, Leonard Wood specifically, for years in NASCAR, has specialized in reducing the mechanical drag of parts on that race car. Everything that rotates in this car, has either a bearing or a gear surface or something. And Leonard was a master at reducing the mechanical drag on these parts. You saw in FS1 this week, they talk about Tiny Lund winning the 500. Well, the reason he won was Leonard Wood had a car that could run with better fuel efficiency and make one less pit stop. And Lund won the 500 in 1963. That's how long the Wood brothers have been just so adept. They won it with Trevor Bayne, and a lot of it was because that car wasn't so slipperier in the wind. They had less mechanical drag than anybody else.
Mike, look at that 21 car. He ran through that stage right, and look what it did to the front tires, the wheels and the tires. And that tells you that there's a lot going on around those tires and wheels that are spinning underneath that car. You look look how white the front tire is in a wheel.
You brought up a really good point there as well, Daryl, and you saw a little bit of it in that graphic that Larry showed, where it's not just about the air moving underneath the car, but it's how you're evacuating the air out through those fender wells and wheels as well. We haven't talked a lot about Ryan Blaney. I tell you what, this is a young man that I think really is going to have an impact on this sport's future. Great young talent, great personality, good-looking young kid, and comes from a very talented family with his father, Dave Blaney, who I used to race sprint cars with, a very talented race car driver who's also running the Cup Series over the years.
And his grandfather, Lou, I mean, he's a third-generation driver. And yeah, a very good one. We saw Joey Gase also out there. A little bit of smoke from Joey's car first time he came by.
Ron reminds me of an old soul. Yeah. When he does an interview, it's like he's been around forever. Got the deep voice. And
yeah. Now a second look at the Joey Gase car, probably just a dust up from some of that speedy dry, not
it was.
Not smoke, but
I love it because
dry.
We talk about our graphics and being in the wind tunnel, and Larry's done shots before showing the smoke go over the top of these race cars. That's really cool to see how the air is moving when they go through some of the speedy dry, and it shows what it does, not just by picking it up, but how it exits the car. It's a very cool shot.
Landon Castle back out. Still quite a line of cars waiting to go. You'll see probably 3 cars on track at any one time, so that cars can make their runs without picking up or sniffing a draft from another driver. Here's a third-generation racer. Don LaJoie was a great modified ace. His son Randy LaJoie, Busch Series champion. His son Corey LaJoie has worked hard to get his way to the NASCAR Cup Series, and here he is.
Yeah, great seeing him get this opportunity.
Yep. Yeah, you're talking about time. We only got an hour and a half to go. I mean, we're going to run out of time here pretty quick.
I'm just loving this youth movement. I really am. I think, while we don't always like to see veterans move on from the sport, it gives opportunity to a young driver to come and get a great chance at showcasing their abilities. And to me, mixing the young new talents with the wise veterans, that's what makes rivalries, that's what builds fan bases, and that's what grows the sport.
See, I thought for a while we didn't have enough yellow bumpers. Because yellow bumpers, when you see a guy with a yellow bumper, you can figure there's going to be some excitement there around that car sooner or later. And we didn't have enough of them, but now we're bringing them back.
Each rookie, and there are 7 drivers hoping to run their first Daytona 500 next Sunday, has to have a yellow strip across the bumper like you see on Daniel Suarez's car on the rear bumper. Rookie stripe.
There's something you don't see every day in NASCAR. Hometown, Monterrey, Mexico.
Welcome back to Daytona. Joey Logano, top of the chart. Daniel Suarez, the rookie, in second in his Toyota. And speaking of talented rookies, Eric Jones about to make his first appearance on the Daytona asphalt after Furniture Row Racing had a long time going through inspection for both his car and his teammate Martin Truex.
Sent him out there a little bit earlier than I think they wanted to. Sort of had to go around the 19 of Daniel Suarez there. Now, with a lack of time on the track, I think they're hoping that everything goes really smooth here. You know, if the car's hitting too much, if they get the temperatures wrong, if the car's not up to speed, that's when you're going to get a little bit worried.
I think this kid's going to do a good job.
Oh, you think he's going to do a great job?
The way Truex ran last year, this car is going to be right there, same speed, same setup, same everything, a Gibbs affiliation. I think you're going to see some impressive runs out of this young man.
We have got a heck of a group of young talent, and this is definitely one that's towards the top of the list. Not just as a rookie, but mix that in there with Chase Elliott and Larson, Busher. I mean, that's Ryan Blaney. This is a fun time in the sport. I'm excited.
We're at that point. We're at that crossroads, changing the guard again.
We could have a Daytona 500 with 45% of the field under age 30. That's never happened.
I was going to say.
I made a bold statement on Race Hub not long ago. They wanted us to make a bold prediction, and I made one that said I think the champion this year will be under 30 years old.
I'm agreeing with that.
Look at the most ever under age 30 was 1960. 19 drivers. I don't remember how big the field was. I think it was around 50 or so drivers in 1960, but still pretty high number. Chris?
Well, Mike, we heard Joe Garone talking about the templates not fitting the 77 of Eric Jones and also the 78 of Martin Truex Jr. and being a little bit off there in Colorado. It was interesting talking to Eric Jones's crew chief, Chris Gale. He's from Joe Gibbs Racing. He ran the 18 car in the Xfinity Series last year, and he said the way that they actually try and duplicate that process is different than what they do at Joe Gibbs Racing. So while those templates might be a little bit off, it looks like they might have to also look at that process that they use in Denver, Colorado, too.
Yeah, thanks. Wasn't the truck ride all the way out to Denver, Colorado, but you know how many drivers started the 500 in 1960? 68.
60.
Started the race.
You're kidding.
No, they used to start a lot. I mean, think about Darlington.
I remember Darlington.
A lot of races back in the day.
3 wide and started
50, 60
so they
cars.
did that in the Daytona 500 as well?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, because they knew a lot of them weren't going to finish.
DW. Imagine they dropped the green and you're starting 50th. Whoa, 60th.
Oh, God.
Not so sure about that, turn one.
Eric Jones just put up the 11th quickest lap here in his first time out on the track. That's pretty impressive.
A lot of new changes this year, including the NASCAR logo. The sanctioning body started with this streamlined design in 1948, refined 8 years later to the oval track. And then this one that we're very familiar with went to the bar logo in 1976 and then simplified it for 2017. So much is new this year.
I think it's only fitting. Go along with all the other things that are happening in the sport.
I think, Jeff, I thought the other thing, too, is how bold, this is bold moves that the people that are managing our sport today have made with these segments of racing and with the sponsor and all the changes and the traveling medical team. Those are things that are big changes in this sport.
Guys, let's go back to Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s interview. He said, I think we're pretty good. He's only been running one lap at a time, and he talked about other drivers on different agendas. But when I look at Joey Logano, who just went to the top of the sheet a while ago at that 46.60 over 193, that was one lap and one lap only. The closest thing I can find on one lap is Ricky Stenhouse Jr. at a 46.87. So big difference right now for that 22 car versus the field on one lap.
And remember, tomorrow it's one lap of qualifying. That's the importance there. Logano quickest, Daniel Suarez second, Clint Boyer third fastest. Waiting to go out. You got to just wonder what's on that boy's mind.
Where's that rain away? I don't see no rain. Well, the sky's got a hell of a lot darker, and it's dropped about 20 degrees. See, you might need glasses. Yeah, but I can see the rain when it's coming or when it's close. I'm not saying there's not rain coming, but I can't see any yet. About 65 miles out right now. Oh, I wonder he can't see. Of course, we are in Florida, and he is on top of the tallest thing in Florida.
Now that's a hunter talking, you know, about feeling the rain coming, right?
Well, he's right about one thing. It's gotten darker, and there are some clouds that have rolled in. And look at the radar here. It shows it's coming.
Spotters get blamed for everything.
They do.
Yeah, they get blamed for everything, even the weather.
Here's what I like about this. That's going to roll right through here in the break between practice and the Clash tonight. Scrub the track down. We'll have a green racetrack and be ready to drop the flag on FS1 for the Clash. Team Penske, top of the chart. Joey Logano, Brad Keselowski. Then Trevor Bayne. Quickest Toyota is Suarez in 4th. And the fastest Chevrolet, Jimmy Johnson, in 12th.
But just look at those times, Mike. I mean, that's what we're talking about. Details, little things make such a big difference. And just look how close those times are. Those first 7 or 8 cars all over each other.
And they just keep creeping down, finding a little more speed each time they go out.
The tuning, they just keep tuning on it. And they may be ABA in a lot of stuff too.
Oh, you love the ABA.
Oh yeah, ABA.
You know, in the meetings NASCAR had they have an owner council, a driver council, a fan council, and they talk with the TV partners. But in the course of those meetings, what was previously 2 practice sessions with a break this year has now been combined into 1 single practice session. So the teams can be a little more methodical with their time during this 4 hours. Seems like a lot, but I think Larry said at the top of the show, each team should get 4 to 5 runs in at least, barring any issues.
Yeah.
So here's Dale Earnhardt Jr. jumping from, I think, 12th to 8th on the board.
Yeah, he said the car was pretty good, and that's a nice lap, really, right there with everybody else, 46.78.
The driver everybody's chasing right now is Joey Logano. Vince.
That's right, as Joey Logano confers with Travis Geisler and also his crew chief there on the right, Todd Gordon. The Penske drivers, a little something different for them, both Keselowski and Logano, and I'll even include Ryan Blaney in that threesome, are all wearing Bell helmets this season, and each driver had their head scanned, and then Bell constructed the inside of the helmet specifically to perfectly fit that particular driver. As you look at Logano's helmet here, not only is it a custom fit, but inside the helmet has better airflow and ventilation. And the outer shell is a military aerospace grade carbon fiber. And here's the key. Overall, the helmet is about a ½ pound or more lighter. So a little easier on the driver, and then the crews are always looking for a little extra weight that they can distribute to their preference. So teams and manufacturers never sleeping on the pursuit of improved technology, whether it's for the car or for the driver.
Always had 2 helmets. The one when I won and one when I didn't win.
Was one a little?
One was a little bigger than the other.
I love that. That's a great story, Vince.
Yes.
Thanks for sharing that with us. I mean, we've obviously documented Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s issues that he had with the concussion. So I love this. The drivers working with manufacturers of these helmets to take things to the next level. And I think scanning and having a perfect fit on that helmet extremely important, as well as having a lighter helmet. I think is also very important.
And you know what, Jeff? We used to take a hammer. I mean, we would take a hammer in the shell, and because it hurts your head, be a little tight up here, and you'd ping that baby back.
Did you have it on at the time? No, I'm kidding. NASCAR announced yesterday a new part of the post-collision protocol for drivers. We now know that if a driver crashes, he has to go to the infield care center. As part of that checkup, there will now be a SCAT-3 concussion protocol test required at each infield care center and on-site support for neurological issues. Now, this means that instead of a driver crashing, going in, getting a quick check, and then we get to talk to him right away, it's going to be about 15 minutes minimum, so the drivers can go through this process after each on-track collision. If you can't drive your car back to the pits, you go to the care center, and this is what happens.
I think that's crucial, and I think it's extremely important, and I think it's a great move, because I have been in accidents before where I was borderline close to a concussion, or maybe a slight concussion, and the adrenaline that's flowing through your body, you don't recognize the symptoms, and you just want to get back out in the race car as fast as you can. So you need to take that cool down time and go through the proper testing to really evaluate. And this is something that's, I think, sort of come from the NFL, and how the NFL has looked at players when they come off the field over to the sidelines and some of the testing that they do.
Yeah, one of the things I think we've learned about concussions is we don't know a lot about concussions. I think every time we, they develop a better way of analyzing a driver or an athlete that's had a concussion, and what the effects are and how to treat those symptoms. I think we're learning more and more all the time, and I think the more we learn, the more we realize we didn't know.
Yeah. Now, you saw Denny Hamlin shut it down. He went out and ran just one lap, and it's his fastest lap of the day, 46.80, 192.2. Remember, they only get one lap in qualifying tomorrow in each session. Tomorrow on FS1, a Big East basketball doubleheader tips off with DePaul taking on number 24 Butler at 1:30 Eastern. Then Georgetown battles Marcus Foster and number 20 Creighton. Big East basketball doubleheader hoops tomorrow on FS1. Michael Waltrip concluding a 30-year run in the Daytona 500. He said this will be his final start in the Cup Series. Two-time winner of the 500. And he will go to 4th on the all-time list of Daytona 500 starters, behind Dave Marcus, Terry Labonte, and Richard Petty.
I think he's got a pretty good race car. He's got a really good engine, a TRD engine, I think it is. And let me tell you, if that old car will halfway run, he'll be up there near the front. He's just got that knack. We talked about that yesterday, I think it was. He's just got a knack for finding the right line, being in the right place, and knowing when to go.
Wouldn't that be fun to see him do, something extraordinary in his final Daytona 500? That'd be a fun story to watch and follow throughout the race.
Yeah, actually, that was earlier.
It was.
First started practice. It seemed like yesterday to me.
Jeffrey Earnhardt has a new ride for 2017. He's in the number 33 with Pat Tryson as his crew chief.
It's one of those rare days where we have breakfast up here, we have lunch up here, we'll have dinner up here.
Yes, we will.
Paul Menard returns to Richard Childress Racing.
Yeah, Matt Brolin, he's Brian Newman's crew chief back when Ryan was having quite a bit of success, and he's jumped over to the crew chief job on this car. Good to see him back on the pit box. I used to aggravate him a lot back in the day. I always called him old dial tone, him and
I like Matt.
But Matt's got a great engineering background, really sharp when it comes to looking at all the technology that comes in and is part of these cars these days.
Another new driver combination. Ty Dillon takes over the wheel of the number 13 for Germain Racing.
Booty Barker.
Yeah, and that just reminded me of somebody else not on the grid right now, which is Casey Mears, who used to drive this car. A great opportunity for Ty Dillon to get in this car, and they're have an alliance with RCR. Another great young talent. This just goes again onto that list of drivers that under 30, him under 25 even, that is really going to be the future of our sport.
Danica Patrick back out for a run. She was very vocal last night about her cockpit environment, and I wonder if Jeff, this is part of that open wheel background, or just that some drivers like yourself are just very specific so that nothing in that environment distracts you.
Yeah, I think it's about being comfortable. The more comfortable you are, if you like the position and how you're sitting, how the steering wheel is positioned, then it gives you more confidence in just focusing on what the car is doing. I think also when you think about the safety side of it, some of the safety features that have been presented this year, which is about the steering column, how it's mounted, has a lot to do with Danica Patrick and some of the impacts that she took. And we saw one incident where that steering shaft and the steering wheel was up in the roof. Yeah. Because of the angle that she hit, and this new feature that they have this year is going to address that.
Well, let's play what she had to say last night during Clash practice.
Should be all green lights for pit road. Flashing one red light on the next bar for pit road. Then when I take off, the lights should count up, but when I have full lights, that's when I should shift to the next gear. Like, I also need the lights properly set so that I know when to shift. So I'm going to be on the screen. I don't have time to click off of it when I'm shifting up on pit out.
Now, that was one conversation about the digital dash.
Yeah. That thing, you used the word that I like to use, distractions, and also you have a comfort level. This is what I'm used to seeing. I remember they'd move a gauge. Maybe they'd move the water temperature gauge on the dash panel. I'd say, where'd you put my gauge? Because I was used to seeing it in one spot. And so I think drivers, they're creatures of habit. And they like to get in that car, and they like to have those pedals, that steering wheel, and everything exactly where it was when last time they drove a good car.
And I know these are considered stock cars, but there's a lot of technology, and that digital dash is one that's really advanced things. And that is a detail that is very customizable, where she can get it exactly where she wants for pit road speed and those lights and how they light up, as well as the shift lights.
Let's get down and join Chris Neville.
Well, Mike, you talk about driving a good car. Clint Boyer has been at the top or near the top of the timesheet all day. And Clint, every time I've seen you, you've had a big smile on your face. You're loving driving this car, aren't you?
Yeah, Boog and the guys have worked so hard, getting prepared for not only Daytona, but the season, as everybody knows, switching over to Ford and everything that goes along with that. So to unload off the truck and be fast just like this, follow along his game plan. Literally every time we've been out, it's went faster. It's pretty fun.
Big smile on his face. Having fun down here, Vince.
With two-time Daytona 500 winner Michael Waltrip, and this car is a testament to his career, getting ready to run his 30th Daytona 500, and what a special event it's going to be, I know, for you. How's it feel to be back in the car again and getting ready to run your final race?
It's just amazing. I mean, it's what I fell in love with as a kid, and I love it as much today as I did then. And just to be able to feel the technology, see all the different gauges and the way they set the cars up these days, it's a lot different now, and I'm just really thankful that for the last 30 years I've got to be a part of this great sport, and I'm looking forward to carrying all these beautiful pictures. There's my mom and dad on the side of the car, and raced the my rookie year against Alan Quickie. There's another Daytona 500 winner, Trevor Bain, my brother Daryl. There's my beautiful mama on my race car. Richard Petty came by a little while ago, and he said, make sure you protect that right rear corner, Cat. I'm over there on that one. So I just want to thank Aaron's and Diamond Resorts and SoCal Media Group for coming up with the idea for this car. I'm really blessed and honored and thankful.
We're so happy for you too, Mike. So many great memories visible on this race car.
I think Michael actually lived on a couch in Richard Petty's house for a summer.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to take a further look at digital dashes and the way it used to be after this. Welcome back to Daytona. Joey Logano, Brad Keselowski are still fastest. Trevor Bain, Daniel Suarez, Clint Boyer are the fast five with 1 hour and 2 minutes left to go in this session. Let's jump in the Wayback Machine, Sherman, and take a look at Michael Waltrip's Bahari Racing Dick Bear Pontiac. The tachometer is the biggest gauge, and gauges are arranged left to right in order of importance. Tach first, oil pressure next, then water temperature, and so on. Today, that looks pretty primitive, Larry.
Yeah, a couple years ago, NASCAR in the Cup Series went to a digital dash. This is the one in our Ford Cutaway car, and you'll see here, you can keep it looking like gauges, but there's a lot of options. You can use a bar graph, you can use digital just like this, but the lights you're talking about is right up here. They can be used as shift lights, or mainly they're used as pit road lights. And pit road speed here is 55. They give you up to 59.999. So you want to stay with all green lights to know that you're right there on pit road speed.
Actually, if you look right here on the left, that's the lap time that is displayed on there. That's something that those drivers really like having inside the car.
Michael and Kyle and Richard were watching a rerun of a race a long time ago when Michael lived with Richard and Kyle, actually with Kyle. And Richard asked Michael, said, Michael, where did you learn about racing? And Michael said, everything I know about racing I learned from my brother. And Richard Lee said, you don't know much, do you?
NASCAR, when it introduced the digital dash, said eventually that dash readout could be made available to the fans. So you can dial up your driver's radio during the race and you can see what he sees on the dashboard of his car. I think we're still a ways off, but I think that'd be, what a great enhancement that would be.
But you know, one of the things that's really nice about that dash is the lap time. Because I can't tell you how many times you go out and run a lap and you go by the line and you start wondering, what was my time? What was my lap time? And you might be on the back straightaway before they finally gave it to you. Now you just look down, you got it right there.
And I know on some of the short tracks or a road course, some of the spotters will give you the lap time, or the crew chief will give you the lap time. And I just never liked that because it was a distraction. I had to pay attention to what lap time they were, because I did want to know. And then I would maybe miss my mark in the next corner. But visually, when you can just glance down at it, much less of a distraction.
Kyle Larson goes to second. He's by far the quickest Chevrolet.
Well, there's that speed in this 42 Chevrolet that we saw yesterday, and now here it's coming.
You know, cell phones aren't allowed in race cars, but there's an app for that. There's something called Harry's Lap Timer that has just about all the road courses in America in there. It does predictive lap timing. Are you quicker than your last lap? Are you slower? Whole lot to do. Maybe that's why that's not allowed in these race cars. Let's recap at the 3-hour mark. Team Penske's Fords were first and third. Joey Logano, Brad Keselowski, both the Roush Fenway Fords. Stenhouse and Bain in the top 10, and rookie Daniel Suarez, the fastest Toyota, who was fifth. Now, last week, the folks at Race Up took a look at Team Penske going into 2017.
Brad Keselowski will plant his battle flag in victory lane.
Caution has waved. Keselowski, the leader.
This is for the win at Daytona.
Right, Daytona. Brad Keselowski has won here at Kentucky.
The biggest obstacle or challenge is just being perfect in those last 10 races. You got to be perfect. Last year we had 0 DNFs. We had the best average finish, scored the most points, tied for the most wins. We've done all those things to the last 10 races, and then we had 3 DNFs in the last 6. It really took us out of contention. You have to be perfect in those last 10 races, and that's going to be our biggest challenge.
Logano looking for his first win of the year.
Awesome.
Oh yeah, get ready to party. Checker, baby. Yeah! Next round! Yeah! Hell yeah! Good job, man. Welcome back to Homestead. Yeah!
I think it's 2 big challenges. For one, you have the new rules package with the cars, which is going to be a pretty big change. I think is being overlooked probably right now by the format change and how the races are going to be. I think they're both going to be equally as big to figure out. Yes, your cars have to be fast, but now strategy is incredibly tough.
With the way the new format is, if you can get some bonus points up in the beginning of the year and set yourself up good, that's going to help you get all the way to Homestead. For me, I have one gear, man. It's wide open. So it doesn't really change the way I race as a driver, but as a team and how Todd's going to have to call these races is obviously going to be different.
as drivers, what you're going to see is a desire and maybe more of an anger factor when things don't go your way in the regular season that didn't exist.
$39 other cars. That's the biggest challenge that we face week in and week out, trying to beat everybody else to try to win a race, and it's so tough to win these cup races.
The preparation before you even get to the track is key to try to be as close as you can be and trying to give the best information that you can throughout the whole weekend. And that was probably one of the biggest things that I tried to work on and get better at. And I spent a lot of time in the off-season trying to do just that. The fire suit, we based it on the Darlington and the Talladega suit I wore last year. Wood Brothers and I talked about trying to do a version of that, and I think it turned out really well. You know, why not have an old school suit for the oldest running team in NASCAR? So I'm really happy that, you know, Motorcraft and everybody let us do this. I think it gives us a really good look for what the Wood Brothers represent.
Really, the three of us have a lot in common, and we just naturally get along. You know, I think we all kind of get the big picture, and I think that's hard to find a lot of times when you get teammates that all, I guess, see the big picture together and understand what we're there to do. Yes, we all want to win, right? Each one of us wants to win the race and have the trophies and all that, but we also realize that if we don't work together, none of us are going to raise the trophies up. So I think it's important. You know, Brad and I I feel like we've grown into a great friendship at this point. We talk about a lot of things outside of racing, and I think that's valuable when it becomes something more than a business relationship. And I think it's hard to have that, but I think it is very important.
You don't want to miss NASCAR Race Hub Monday through Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern. That's the hub right here on FS1. So Team Penske and their alliance with Wood Brothers Racing going into 2017, it seems they're just right on the brink of another championship. And you know, that idea of drivers under 30 or 35, if you want to hedge your bet, running for the championship and winning, you got to include these fellas.
Well, first I think of Penske just in general and their attention to detail and where they're at as far as other organizations, one of the top ones out there. But then I think of what contributes to that as a driver lineup and crew chief: chemistry. There's a tremendous amount of chemistry between these three drivers, but that also suits them well in their chemistry with their crew chiefs and some of the strategy that's going to play out with the stages this year and the way these races are going to unfold. You got to be able to be aggressive, and they certainly have an aggressive lineup of drivers and crew chiefs that know how to utilize that.
So Darrell, with Stuart Haas moving forward and Penske being right now the #1 Ford team,
right?
They don't like to share.
No, Roger has a history of liking to be on an island by himself. And so I wonder if bringing in those 4 cars from Stuart Haas, how that's going to affect the Ford relationship with Roger and Tony Stewart and Gene Haas, those guys. It should make them better. I mean, you think about the technology that Stuart Haas can bring to the table. They've been over here using Hendrick cars and engines and chassis for a long time, and now they're going to switch over to Ford. I got to think some of that information might cross over. It could help them all. But I always think about Roger. When I think about him, we always think about him being over there somewhere doing something different than everybody else is doing.
But we know they know how to win, because at Team Penske, Trans Am, Can-Am, IndyCar, NASCAR, 29 national championships in all those forms of motorsports. All part of the 50 years so far of Team Penske. Now this time, Jimmy Johnson Chevrolet is being pushed through the garage and at a pretty rapid pace.
Mush.
Trying to get out to pit road to make another run. What would be the urgency here?
Yeah, this is just to simulate an actual qualifying run as much as possible. So you don't want to start the engine up in the garage area, back out, and then drive it out. That just creates more heat and temperature in the engine. And so this is all about just getting out there and saying, all right, this is probably our final run, or at least our most accurate run. He's been making multiple lap runs, and so this is now the time where they've taped up, cooled the engine down, have everything nice and warm, and this is probably going to be really close to what we'll see out of this car tomorrow.
All right, before he rolls off, Chris Neville.
And Jamie McMurray, he's hoping to get at least one more run in here. And you won this race back in 2010. You know, right now, just 20th on the board. You've had a fast car here before. Is qualifying a good indicator of what you're going to have in the race, or does it really not matter?
Well, at this point, you'd like to have a fast car. And I think that anybody, when you come down here, the mentality would be to have the best qualifying car. So you start up front, and you hope your car will race like that. You just don't always get to have that. And qualifying means the least here of anywhere that we run, especially this weekend, because we do run the duels on Thursday, and that ultimately, you know, dictates your starting position. But you know, after I've been coming down here for a long time, and you just want to have a fast car when you get down here. There's really nothing as a driver you can do. It's all basically done at the engine shop and at the fabrication shop before you get here. But we've been working on it, and we've gotten it a little bit better. The encouraging thing, I think, for our group was to see how quick the 42 ran when they went and kind of did all the little tricks that we all do. They ran a really good lap. So hopefully, when we do all those little tricks, we run that same good lap. But yeah, our McDonald's test in the Chevy has been okay. We've got this really cool paint scheme tonight with the Grand Mac on. I like the look of the car, and I think Jeff would contest to the fact that when you show up and you like the paint scheme, maybe you race a little harder. So they did a really good job with that, and we've had a lot of fun promoting the Grand Mac, a little bit bigger than the traditional Big Mac. And for me, that's good, because when I went to McDonald's, I always ended up with a Big Mac and something else because I wasn't quite full. So that was a good compromise, yeah.
Well, here's where we're different. A Big Mac always filled me up. Vince?
It all there, that's for sure. Chase, you know, we talk about what a difference a year makes. A year ago at this time, you're getting ready to start your first Daytona 500. Of course, you went on and had a terrific season, Rookie of the Year. What's it feel like today? How much different does it feel than it did a year ago?
I think just that comfort of being around for a little while. Obviously not very long, but a little while, which is nice. So I'm happy to be back. Obviously, Daytona wasn't our strong point last year. Tore up a lot of stuff down here. So I hope we don't start it off that way tonight.
Yeah, for sure. Look forward to seeing Chase in the clash later tonight.
Meanwhile, his teammate Jimmy Johnson's coming to the green. Let's ride along here.
And you'll see how he ran that high lane all the way until he got to the start-finish line. Now he's going to just keep it right down on this yellow line to make the shortest lap possible. Pretty good speed there. You can hear the cars really up to speed, traveling quite a bit, dragging the racetrack a bit.
It's about the RPM we've been seeing, 83, 8,400, probably hit 85 down the back here. What we've seen in some of the other runs.
Yeah, and I'd almost say that tailwind's died down, and we see a little bit of weather starting to approach Daytona. We're seeing that tailwind is not quite there like it was earlier.
Of course, now it's in the corner. It's losing a little, lost 100 there. Lost another 100 there back, but it's pretty close. Just bouncing around about 100. This ought to be a pretty good lap.
Yeah, I think so as well.
46.86. That's within 2/100ths of the quickest lap that he's run, but not a pickup from his previous run. We'll mention Martin Truex is on pit road. It took 3 hours and 10 minutes to get that car out and ready to practice. He'll be coming out shortly as we watch Eric Almirola and Richard Petty's Ford. There's a look at Truex, runner-up in the closest Daytona 500 finish ever. 43 minutes to go in Daytona 500 qualifying practice. Martin Truex on track for the first time in this 4-hour practice session after inspection issues caused them to have to do some sanding and filing on the bodywork.
Mike, that 46.92, that's what everybody else ran the first 3 hours ago. So he's got to do some quick catching up here to get up there to that 46.60.
Well, and remember, DW, we saw a lot of teams after they went out their second time and everything was heated up, they definitely picked up a couple tenths. So for a first run out, that's pretty solid.
And the 46 is pretty good.
So that means that now all 42 drivers have had a chance at the track. Ricky Stenhouse just finished a lap. He is 6th overall.
You know, sometimes you don't want to show your hand testing or in practice. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. in that 17 just ran a 46.68, but I'm quite sure
he killed the engine just shy of the start-finish line. Let's take a listen.
Let's lean in here and see what we can hear.
I couldn't quite tell.
Couldn't tell.
Yeah, you really couldn't tell there, but I pulled my headset back and listened here right above the start-finish line. He definitely shut it off before he got there.
Trevor Bayne just did the same.
I just heard him do it. That time I heard it.
Yeah, I heard that.
And what did he run?
Okay. Why would you do that?
Well, that tells me you're pretty confident in what you have, that you don't want to show all your cards.
It doesn't count until tomorrow. It doesn't pay a thing today.
And the order of qualifying is set by fastest practice speeds. So this is telling me that those two Roush Fenway Fords don't want to be the last drivers in the qualifying line tomorrow.
Could be something to that too.
Well, they're 6 and 7 right now, but I tell you, another car that I know we're looking at Kurt Busch right here, but look where Almirola all of a sudden jumped up there to second quick in that 43 car.
And something else, sometimes you want to know, well, what kind of lap would I have run? I wouldn't be surprised if a crew chief or somebody else is actually keeping a time on that car at a different location before they get to the start.
Exactly. Well, we used to do that all the time. Time them off turn 2, time off turn 4, so that we wouldn't put a time up on the board as fast as we thought we could.
Now tonight we have the Clash on FS1. Tomorrow you'll see Daytona 500 pole position qualifying live at 3 p.m. Eastern time on your local Fox station. Or watch it on Fox Sports Go.
I can't wait to see Dale Jr. It's going to be fun having him up here.
Oh, I can't wait.
I mean, and what's really fun for me, you're up here, you've won a Daytona 5. He's up here, he's won a Daytona 500. To hear you guys talk about what you're going to see tonight in the race, that's fun. I enjoy the heck out of it.
Well, it's a fun race. I mean, this race is so exciting, and no points on the line. These drivers make some big, bold moves and go for it. And to have that kind of experience up here in the booth talking about it, I can't wait.
He says he wants to come up here, see what he can learn. I was hoping we'd learn from him.
I think we're going to be learning more than he's probably going to be learning.
He might come up here and want to forget what he knows. Because I tell you, I know the first few times I came over here and did some of these restrictor plate races, I was a nervous wreck. Because when you're in the car, you kind of got tunnel vision.
Right.
When you're up here, you see everything.
Yeah, he may go through it and go, I'm really glad Alex Bowman's in the car tonight.
I think so.
Is Joey doing the grid walk? Is that why that's there?
He's certainly a big Joey Logano fan.
He sure looks happy.
I did hear carefully what Dale said in the interview. I hope I can get a word in it.
What do you think he meant by that, DW?
Yeah, Darryl, what do you think he meant?
He wasn't talking to me, he was talking to you. Or you.
Well, we'll see. Okay, 36 minutes to go in practice. Dale Earnhardt Jr., Kevin Harvick getting pushed out and into position. Chase Elliott, and this is not to give these crew guys exercise.
No, it is.
They've
That
had
was
plenty.
Chad Knaus's method to his madness. You guys haven't known enough today. Push the car out there.
All right. Joey Logano, fastest so far. Victory sign from Dale Earnhardt Jr., who's been tweeting when he's not been out on the racetrack during this session. His Twitter handle is @Dale Jr.
He wants
Dale
to know,
Jr. That is.
He wants to know what time to be up here tonight.
See if Ryan Blaney runs it all the way to the line, or if he cuts it before the start-finish line.
Those are the kind of things that make you go,
Now, the only other reason I can think that they may do that is if the engine gets a little bit too hot and they missed on the tape. That's the only other thing that could
possibility
factor
of
in.
that. Because I tell you, these engine builders, they're persnickety about these engines. I mean, they got a number, and you better not miss it.
Yeah, Blaney gets up into the top 5 to 4th.
That car is always fast. Leonard Wood been down there tuning on it. Jeremy Bowens, he's been beating on it.
You know, Amarola up to second.
I know,
well.
that impressed. I just looked up and saw his name. I said, holy cow, where'd that come from? That's a 61 to a Logano's 60. I mean, he's right there.
So here's Jamie McMurray back out, currently 22nd. Talked about how his teammate Kyle Larson, third fastest, and he wants to see what happens when they do all those little tips and tricks.
I do like what he said about a good-looking paint scheme. I will say, when you have a cool paint scheme, there's a little extra pep in your step when you hop in that car.
Yeah.
Don't know if it makes it go any faster.
Oh, it makes you feel better, though.
When Dale Earnhardt Jr. rides off, Jeff wants to take a ride along from when that car launches on pit road. So let's do that.
All right, here he goes.
See, now he's going right to red line on each shift.
It's exactly what the engine tuners and builders tell him to do. He actually short shifted a little there. Didn't go all the way red.
But I tell you, I've seen that pick up speed, that getting in high gear and let it eat. You see how nice and steady he is on the wheel. You don't want to turn that wheel any more than you have to. But he does his typical Dale Jr. thing. He'll throw that right hand over there.
That's interesting here. He didn't run the high line. He's just going straight to the bottom through 3 and 4.
Seeing about the same RPM, Jeff, about 8,300 down the front here.
You can see basically they get to terminal velocity right about the start-finish line, which is what you're looking for.
So he's on 83. Now when he comes off, if he's like everybody else, he's probably going to get up to 84, 85 down the back.
And you hear the hitting, you see the sparks. So that car is down in the racetrack. I don't know if they wanted to hit quite that much, but they've definitely done their homework. Look at that valence, how just flat and sealed up it is to the racetrack on the front, or the splitter.
But that was a lot of sparks as he entered turn 1.
There's a pretty big bump in the middle, 1 and 2. Sometimes you'll hit harder down there.
A lot of that's just that little tin piece on the side right there, or that little side skirt. Not necessarily tin. Got 8,400 to come to the front, or to the line. That's pretty good.
Quickest lap, 46.71.
71.
About a 10th off right there, but that's still a good lap.
Yeah, so that's exactly what he's going to go through in qualifying tomorrow. I love that wheel spin as he came off pit road. Vince?
You know, throughout the course of the day, we've documented some of the issues for Furniture Row, and not just Martin Truex Jr., but his teammate Eric Jones as well, and what they've had to do to get through tech and get their cars ready to go. You've run 1 lap today, so you've been standing around doing a whole lot of nothing. How's that testing your patience?
I'm bored. I've definitely been looking for something to do, hanging out in the trailer. I think we ran out of things to talk about, so it's been an interesting day, to say the least. But we really only plan on making 1 run anyhow. We'd hoped, I guess, that it might have been a little bit earlier.
Wish you the best once you guys get things rolling. Chris?
Yeah, and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. just ran his quickest lap in this practice session. And our team in the booth, they were watching you and your teammate out there. You guys shutting the cars down right before the start-finish line. Why would you guys do that?
Well, there's a lot of cat and mouse game going on in the garage area right now. But, I'm really happy with the car that, Jimmy Finning and the guys have built at the shop. Doug Yates, as you see, a lot of the Fords got some good speed. So everybody's doing their part. We're just trying to see what all gains that we can make this practice session. We found a few gains. We found some that we thought were not a lot of gains. So we'll go sift through all the data and figure out what all we're going to throw in it for tomorrow. So I think there could be a lot of surprises tomorrow after everybody watches practice, and you try to figure out who's got what. But our Fastenal Ford feels pretty good right now, and happy with all the work they've put in.
Well, tomorrow's an important day. Nobody's wanting to show their entire hand.
If things go his way, that's a driver who could have his breakout season in 2017.
I like that, boy.
"25 minutes to go in this practice session. Still a lot of cars lined up and ready to roll as A.J. Allmendinger comes back to his garage stall. He is 25th quickest, and there's a dozen or so on pit road ready to go, and 3 on the racetrack. Austin Dillon. He's currently 27th. So let's have a look, see if there's a difference here and how Austin Dillon gets up to speed. You want to watch that bar graph that is the tachometer on the digital display. Now he uses, instead of a bar graph, uses a series of lights.
You can see all of it going on right over here. What he's watching. He maxed her out in third gear.
Yeah, that's the bar graph. Right at the top of the digital display is the tachometer as a bar graph. Green now, there's a yellow zone, and then red.
Got to figure out what that switch is they keep flipping over there.
That's the let's annoy Jeff Gordon switch right there.
It doesn't really do anything.
It doesn't do anything, right?
No, it doesn't do anything. They know we're watching, so this gives us something to watch and talk about.
And if you're wondering why some of those numbers are flashing red, you know, a lot of times they'll start off so cool that it'll actually be below some of the pressures or temperatures that are optimal, and then they'll build up as this run goes on and builds temp and heat.
But I got to believe that's a fan, the engine fan, that they're either turning on or turning off. It could be turning it off once they get out on the racetrack.
I would call it an exhaust fan. Exhausting something.
It could be that. Could be hooked to something that we don't know about, or something we do know about. That RPM is
one and done. 47.17 for Dillon. That's about 7/100 slower than his quickest lap.
Yeah, he didn't quite have
so
the
far.
RPM some of the other guys.
Vince?
With Eric Amarola, won here in July a couple of years ago, and working with Daytona 500 winning crew chief Drew Blickensderfer. Seems like a good combination. Second quickest so far. How have you guys progressed today? And I know you think you got another run left in you.
Yeah, we're going to try and get back out one more time. But, man, it's been a great qualifying practice day for us. Probably the best I've ever had down here. Just everything's gone really smoothly. Every time we go back out, we pick up a little bit of speed. So Drew and the guys on the Smithfield team have got a couple more tweaks to do, and we're going to go out and just run one lap. The last few runs we've run 2 laps, and the second lap's been a little faster. So we're going to go out and basically do a mock qualifying run and see what we got. But I think all of the blue ovals are pretty fast. So Doug Yates has brought some steam down here, and our Ford Fusion's pretty fast.
Well done. A lot of smiles down here in this petty camp, guys.
Yep, Drew Blickensderfer on the pit box.
Yeah.
Right there.
But I will say that's some of where the discrepancy will come from what you're seeing lap times right now versus what you're going to see when they're on the clock for actual qualifying tomorrow. And that's that some teams have chosen to run multiple laps versus that one lap that's going to be on the clock tomorrow. And so sometimes that will pick up your speed just a little bit. So tomorrow, you never know exactly what's going to happen, who's going to come out on top.
You know what's amazing to me, though, Jeff, watching these cars, we know this track's not perfectly smooth. It's got some dips and dives in it, but that nose never moves. That splitter is right against the racetrack, and it never moves. And I know that car, there's some movement going on somewhere.
Well, I think that just shows you how stiff everything is when it sits on those bump stops
right down
and
there,
the shocks, and how they're controlling, you know, the rebound and the compression to just hold it there perfectly.
Now Boyer was about 1.5 tenths off of his fastest lap. Let's move to Jimmy Johnson, who's currently 17th.
That's quite a bit of dragging with those skirts.
That's kind of normal, I think, in qualifying trim. Because you want to, they're going to make them a little long and let them drag a little bit.
Up to 15th for Johnson, and while that was.
That's it. Go ahead and flip your engine fan on for me, please.
There you go.
Solid day, guys. Thank you. I appreciate the hard work.
That's Chad Knaus. Back to Boyer. That was not his fastest lap of the day, but it was his fastest first lap of any run.
Okay.
So Boyer continues to pick up. Jimmy Johnson, 46.78, 15th quickest. 20 minutes to go in pre-qualifying practice. $18 minutes to go in this session. Casey Kane has just completed a lap that is 7th fastest. He's now the 2nd fastest Chevrolet. He's run a total of 11 laps over this practice session. Daniel Suarez back out. He's run 27 laps and is 6th fastest. Kyle Larson has run the most laps in this session, 31.
There are 10 cars in this 60. 46.60 for Logano, all the way down to 10th place in the 60s.
That's close. Chris?
And with a little less than 20 minutes left, A.J. Allmendinger saying you guys are done for the day, and the car looks great this year. Brand new driver's suit, and you guys are having some fun with the driver's suit this weekend.
Yeah, it's as we speak, I'm sweating in my suit. So we're giving this suit away after the Daytona 500. So you can go to, basically anybody can take a picture of themselves with a Kroger logo anywhere they want, whether it's on TV, at a store, just a Kroger logo. Send it to all the JTG media outlets. We'll pick a winner. You'll get this suit. I told them the only way I'm going to give this suit away is not washing it. So as I sweat here, you guys are getting a sweaty suit, whoever wins.
All right, sounds like a great program. Vince?
With Jimmy Johnson, let's see, 7 championships, couple of Daytona 500 wins, and the very first pole of your career was here, 2002. What do you remember about that day?
I remember being so thankful that I qualified on the pole, because in the qualifying race, I made a mistake and went out of bounds and was penalized and would have missed the race as a result. So if I didn't qualify in the front row, I would have missed my very first start in this Lowe's 48 car.
Wow. So a long time since then, a lot has passed. What do you think of the 48 today?
The 48's been fun. We've had good speed with it. You know, it's so hard to tell by yourself. You're always walking that tightrope of single car speed versus what you think you're going to want to race with. So we've been chasing, you know, that circle for 4 hours now, and looking forward to racing tonight and going after it tomorrow for the pole.
The beard game is really strong too. You going to keep that for a while, or?
Yeah, it doesn't feel all that comfortable in the helmet, I have to admit, but it feels so normal in Colorado, where I've been most of the winter. Around the racetrack, it's maybe not as normal and you know, so easy to see.
Jimmy was sharing some good ski stories, Gordon, but we'll just keep those for another day.
But he has no idea. I was so far behind him. He was a long way ahead of me. He didn't know how I was doing.
Couple of downhill racers. Yep. Rookie Eric Jones is in the top 20, 16th fastest. He's run 9 laps.
Couple of tenths off the fast Logano time, 46.60. Jones at a 46.79, but still.
He's the 3rd fastest Toyota.
Still in the hunt.
Yep. Brad Keselowski back out for what may be his final run.
Yeah, I'd say he'd like to maybe leapfrog up to maybe a 46.58 right now.
Now, do you want to? We talked, you know, we heard Ricky Stenhouse Jr. talking about showing everything, and it's the cat and mouse game. I mean, if you feel like you've got a car that can win the pole, do you want to show everything that you have right now?
Well, he's got to look. That's 8,400 coming to the line. Most cars have been 83.
And he certainly got it taped up, because we saw losing a little bit of water.
46.62. That is 3rd fastest. He and Joey Logano have both run 22 laps. Logano 46.60. Keselowski 46.62. Larry, that's about as equal as you can be.
Well, right now, as far as one lap, Logano and Keselowski are the fastest too. Not a surprise. They won 3 of our 4 plate races last year. They won 6 of the last 9. So we know they're always fast at Daytona and Talladega.
Yeah, Larry, that's what I was going to say. When I leave this practice, I go back and analyze all the numbers. I'm going to go back to who did a 1-lap mock qualifying run at the end of this practice, and that's how I'm going to rank them, because a lot of times it does get skewed with people making multiple laps earlier in a run. Maybe somebody gets a tow or something like that off of another car. But I agree, those 2 Penske cars look pretty strong.
But Logano and Keselowski are 2 of the most aggressive restrictor plate racers out there. I know they got fast cars, but man, they put them in places nobody else will fear.
That's why I don't want to see them on the front row, because I want to see them make some of those moves.
They're going to make some moves, all right, but everybody's going to be behind them is a problem.
They might be doing it amongst one another.
They might be. Well, no, tonight will be a good indication of what those boys can do.
Danica Patrick comes to the line from 25th. And let's update the open cars. Here's Elliott Sadler. He is second fastest of the drivers not guaranteed a spot in the 500. Brendan Gaughan just a tick of the watch faster than Sadler, then Kennington, Sorensen, Corey LaJoie, and Timmy Hill. 4 of those 6 drivers will earn their way into the 500 either by their finish in the Thursday duel or by their qualifying time tomorrow. 12.5 minutes to go in this practice session. Tonight it's the Clash at Daytona, the first NASCAR checkered flag of Speed Week 17, 8 p.m. right here on FS1, or watch it live on Fox Sports Go.
I like the way the guys explain it's an exhibition race. And then I tell you, I don't know what it's going to put a show on. I can tell you that.
Yes, it is. With defending winner Denny Hamlin on the front row with Brad Keselowski. And here's a look at the 17-car field.
That's a strong front row.
Woohoo! I like getting it back to the Clash. I mean,
yes.
I certainly have a lot of great memories from when it was the Clash, and I just think it's very fitting for the action you're going to see in this race.
Yeah, the Clash rhymes with a lot of things that come to mind.
Let's start with Cash and leave it at that.
Yes.
Okay, that's a good one.
Good job, Mike.
Eric Almirola back out for a final time with 9.5 minutes to go in this session. He is second fastest to Joey Logano by 1/100th of a second.
Now remember, when we talked to Almirola earlier, he had said he had made a couple laps, and so this was their 1-lap mock qualifying run. Lost a little more than a tenth, but I think that's a really accurate number, 46.778.
Cole Witt working with Frankie Kerr in the number 72. They are 35th on the board, and they are one of the chartered teams, the 36 teams that are guaranteed a spot in the 500 that will be qualifying for starting position.
What do you know about Frankie Kerr?
I know a little bit about him.
What a sprint car race.
Oh yeah, he was a wheel man, I'm telling you.
I got fired from a car that McBride chauffeured, number 23 sprint car, and he was the one that took over for me. Showed me what that car was capable of doing. Luckily, it led to a NASCAR career for me. And somehow it led him to a NASCAR career as well.
Right. Frankie is an interesting dude. I like him a lot.
I think he was inducted into the Sprint Car Hall of Fame last year.
I think he was. Yeah, he was.
Let's check with Vince.
With Daniel Suarez, certainly one of the big stories here at Daytona this weekend, that's for sure. Getting ready to run the Clash tonight. Just finished up practice for the Daytona 500 pole run. How do you evaluate this first couple of days in the car?
It's been very good. Definitely. I think this practice was maybe the longest practice of my career. But it was good. I feel like we learned some good stuff. We have good speed in our Aris Toyota Camry, and really looking forward for tonight's race in the Clash. I feel like I'm going to learn a ton for next weekend, so let's have some fun.
You're an Xfinity Series champion, so it's not your first time in the car by any stretch, and you did test this Cup car at Phoenix. But how have the nerves been? Have you felt any of that here this weekend?
Well, it's always a little bit of nerves and a little bit of pressure, but that's normal. I guess if you can handle that, you're in the wrong sport. But so far it's been great. This team has been working very hard to try to make this transition as smooth as possible for me, and so far it's been great. Everyone has been working hard. We have a speed. My teammates, they've been great, helping me a lot. Yesterday I learned a lot, and I feel like tonight is going to be huge for me, and really looking forward. I'm super excited.
School is in session, that's for sure. Thanks a lot, Daniel.
Vince, you can tell him it's also been the longest practice session of all of our
Yes, definitely.
But can you imagine
That's
this kid?
okay.
This kid had no idea he would be where he is today.
That's right.
Driving that Cup car.
Wow.
Not too soon, I mean.
Keep it right here for all your NASCAR on FS1. NASCAR Race Hub. John Roberts and the crew coming up next. Then the ARCA Series has their annual shot at Daytona International Speedway, 4 p.m. NASCAR Race Day at 6 takes you up to the Clash at Daytona. Dale Earnhardt Jr. joins us in the booth to call the Clash.
3.5 minutes, Mike. 3.5 minutes of practice left, and there's crew chiefs down there saying, man, get us hurry up. Let's get back here and make one more run.
Like Chris Buescher is doing right now, new teammate to A.J. Allmendinger. During this 4-hour session, the car that spent the most time on the track was Kyle Larson, 20 minutes and 30 seconds on the track.
Wow.
By contrast, Martin Truex, 1 minute, 33 seconds.
That's 1.5 laps.
Yeah, but then if you revert, which one spent the most time in the inspection lane?
Yes, exactly.
But yeah, Kyle Larson started this practice session by making multiple lap runs. I think Jimmy Johnson sort of did the same thing, and then they started going to the single lap runs, which is why they had more time.
That was like with Truex. I mean, you think about he was about 3 hours behind everybody. The first run he made was a good run, but everybody else made that run earlier on and were able to improve.
Kyle Busch airing out his fire suit.
I'm wondering if that's not just some sand and dust that's accumulating inside the car, blowing around inside the car, or maybe from some of that speedy dry. It looks like he's giving himself a shower down there.
He got
and his phone too.
Got to go to appearance.
Nobody out on pit road, and reports of a stray sprinkle or two out there.
I never thought I'd see the day where you'd come here and at the end of a Daytona practice, get ready to qualify, there'd be nobody on pit road.
How many times have you run to the truck and said, can we just have 5 more minutes?
They finally found out how to stop that from happening. 4 hours of practice.
We just had 5 more minutes.
DJ Kennington searching for a bit of speed here. He is 39th of 42. And one of those 6 open drivers, non-charter drivers, who has to race or time his way in. Brendan Gaughan, the quickest of those, then Elliott Sadler, then Reed Sorensen. Kennington 4th of those 6, ahead of Corey LaJoie and Timmy Hill.
But you know, there's a perfect example watching this car come down the back straightaway there, and you can look even right here. Look at the gap underneath that front splitter. It's a pretty good gap there, and probably catching a little bit of air. And that's where these top teams are so advanced in how they get those ride heights just perfect to get the most speed out of the car.
They science it out. Right. I love it when I hear guys say, oh, we're sciencing out the front end. That blows my mind.
And really tough for a team, you know, to come down here and not have all that those resources at their disposal to be able to map that out or science it out.
We just did trial and error. You know, well, that's too much. Put a little bit back. A little more.
Kennington completes his run, and that's going to do it. There's 42 seconds left in the session. No takers on track or on pit road. Let's check with Chris Neville.
Yeah, and Eric Jones done with this practice session. Eric, you missed about, well, a little over 2 hours initially because you guys were having problems getting the car through the templates, but did you get everything off the checklist?
We got real close. We wanted to do one more run. That was our plan, but just kind of ran out of time. But the 5-hour Energy Camry was okay. I wish we were a little bit higher up on the charts, you know, kind of what we were talking about. But good baseline, a lot of good things we learned today, I think, to go into tomorrow. So you never know what's going to change tomorrow. Track and weather and everything's going to change, so it should be fun to see where we end up.
Still a lot to learn in the Cup car. You've never done a super speedway race. You're going to watch the race tonight?
Yeah, for sure. I've probably studied more for this race than really any other race in my career. So I spent a couple hours at JGR with their aero guy, going over stuff and trying to figure out how to draft and how to make maneuvers and how to pass. So there's a lot of things to the Cup drafting that's different than the Xfinity or the Truck Series. So I'm looking forward to seeing tonight kind of some of those things I learned, hopefully put into action.
Yeah, Eric's got a busy year in front of him, running for Rookie of the Year over here. Also going to do 17 races on the Xfinity side.
He was one of 6 drivers that ran 9 laps. Martin Truex ran the least, just 1. Kyle Busch the most, 32 laps. So Joey Logano and Ford win practice. Logano, Almirola, Keselowski the first 3. Kyle Larson the fastest Chevrolet. Daniel Suarez, the rookie, the fastest Toyota.
Don't count out Dale Earnhardt Jr. It's great to have him back at the racetrack.
It really is. But you know, one of the things that really surprised watching all these practice qualifying runs is how many Fords are in the top 10. Somebody's done their homework.
Qualifying tomorrow live on Fox later in the afternoon than we've usually seen, with a bit of a schedule adjustment. And there are the 42 drivers. Coming up on FS1, NASCAR Race Hub is next, followed by the annual ARCA race here at Daytona. And then NASCAR Race Day We'll take you up to start time for the Clash at Daytona. All live on FS1, Fox Sports, and FS1, your home for NASCAR. Wind still out of the southwest, little light sprinkle just here and there. Clouds seem to have gone a bit higher, although it's a pretty solid overcast over the speedway right now. And the Ford boys will have something to celebrate after this 4-hour session today, in which they knocked down 7 of the top 10 spots, including all the first 3.
Wow. Pretty impressive.
Strong performance led by Team Penske. Logano first, Keselowski third, Blaney fifth for the Wood brothers. We'll find out what they've got tomorrow with Daytona 500 qualifying live on Fox. But a lot of NASCAR coming your way right here on FS1. Race Hub, ARCA.
That's M&M's right there.
And then the Clash. All right, let's join John Roberts at NASCAR Race Hub here on FS1.